Chapter 325. I'll meow your A**s. Bast was the first to launch an attack at Gahan. The cat clawed at Gahan's face at a speed close to the speed of sound. Gahan reacted quickly and used the Yu-King sword to block Bast's cat claw. Bast was not a big cat, but its strength was not small. As expected of a universe-level Yuan-Ko, its attack was like a road roller that weighed tens of tons hitting Gahan's Yu-King sword. If Gahan were to take it head-on, his wrist would probably be broken in an instant. Thus, Gahan skillfully shifted Bast's strength to the left. Bast flew out like a cannonball and fell heavily to the ground. However, Gahan could not relax because Anubis and Isai's attacks had arrived. Anubis's attack method was his scepter. Although the scepter was not big, it was extraordinarily heavy. If it was not tens of tons, it was at least tens of tons. Gahan only touched it lightly, and the web between his thumb and forefinger became numb. His bones could not take it anymore. On the other hand, Isai's was good at using darts. The knot of Isai's in her hand could condense the air into air darts, invisible and formless. When Isai's first attacked, Gahan did not notice it until the darts were less than a meter away from his body. Only then did he feel the change in the airflow. Although Gahan tried his best to dodge, the dart still injured his left arm. It was just a gentle graze, but Gahan's arm was cut a few centimeters deep. This is not a suitable place to fight, Gahan silently thought. Gahan's current fight was rather stifling. This was because behind Gahan was the petrified I Ching. Gahan did not dare to go all out. He was deeply afraid that his attacks would injure I Ching and interrupt her synchronization. If that happened, he would completely fail the instant's dungeon quest. I have to think of a way to pull the battle far away. Gahan made up his mind. At that moment, the black cat Bast, who had been thrown away, attacked angrily. It wanted to use its sharp claws to cut Gahan's throat, but Gahan gently moved sideways. His left hand grabbed Bast's tail and lifted it. Baudet, I think the real reason for your rebellion is because your IQ has been crushed by me too much. Gahan raised Bast in front of his eyes and said mockingly, "Your intelligence is the stupidest cat I've ever seen. Even Garfield is smarter than you." Logically speaking, Bast's intelligence was much higher than most humans. Compared to 99% of cats, it was much smarter. However, Gahan was not lying. Bast was indeed the stupidest cat he had ever seen. This was because Gahan had only seen this cat in his entire life. In Yuzhong City, cats were rare pets, much rarer than dogs. If an ordinary family was willing to spend a sum of money, they could still get a dog as a pet. But if you wanted to raise a cat, please, did you have the approval from the council? Without the approval, did you still want to raise a cat? In short, cats were very rare in Yuzhong City. They could not be seen in ordinary residential areas. There might be a few in the core area, but Gahan had not had the opportunity to see one. So, Bast was indeed the first cat that Gahan had seen with his own eyes. Unfortunately, Bast did not know this. It was about to explode when it heard Gahan's words. "Stupid human, Baudet is going to kill you. You actually dare to compare that Garfield fellow to this meow meow. I'm going to die of anger." Well, Bast was really angry. The most annoying thing in its life was to hear someone compare it to Garfield. Garfield was a reverse scale in Bast's heart that could not be touched. Speaking of Garfield's story, he was very famous in the human world. In essence, Garfield was like Baudet. Both of them were marshals. Moreover, Garfield's qualifications were very high. On the first day of the apocalypse, Garfield came to the human world. This was the only Yuan-Ko that existed from the first day of the apocalypse to the present day. Speaking of Garfield's level, in the beginning, humans gave Garfield the level of a mouse. Yuan-Ko, a cat with the name of a mouse, was really a tragic thing. The reason why Garfield was determined to be a mouse Yuan-Ko was very simple. It was because Garfield was the first Yuan-Ko to surrender to a human and the first Yuan-Ko to be captured by an ordinary human. Yes, this Garfield carried the name of Yuan-Ko for nothing, but he was tragically captured by an ordinary human. Don't think too much about it. That was an ordinary person living in the old Yinjing city. His life ended as an ordinary person. At first, The ordinary person thought that Garfield was just an ordinary fat cat that had been sleeping on the ground. This person, who had been starving for a few days, thought of slaughtering Garfield and stewing it. Therefore, it was very simple for him to capture Garfield with just 2 hands. Garfield did not even resist. When this person boiled water and was about to skin Garfield, the sleepy Uncle Cat suddenly said, "Hey, cat slave, are you going to boil water for this Uncle Cat to bathe?" This ordinary person was scared half to death and hurriedly handed Garfield over to the police who maintained the stronghold. Then, Garfield became a Yuan Ko sample and lived in a human laboratory for more than 400 days. During these 400 days, Garfield was very cooperative with the human research. He never resisted and never escaped from prison. Nonsense. With pizza serving him every day, how could this Uncle Cat bear to escape? If it weren't for the fact that the old Yinjing city had not been breached by Yuan Ko 400 days later, and the humans had begun to flee to the dimensional rift under the leadership of Kinzu, leaving this obedient Garfield in the old Yinjing city, this Uncle Cat would probably have lived in the human laboratory for the rest of his life. However, the results of these 400 days could not be underestimated. Through the research on Garfield, the humans' understanding of Yuan Ko skyrocketed. They also gradually understood Yuan Ko's origins and the fact that they were hiding in the dimensional rift. It could be said that Garfield had revealed the first page of Yuan Ko's secrets to the humans. However, as Garfield's figure became active in various battlefields, the humans' evaluation of Garfield's level rose from mouse-level Yuan Ko to universe-level Yuan Ko. That's right, it was universe-level Yuan Ko. It was equivalent to a sword wielder at the immortal sword tier. It was the same universe-level Yuan Ko as Baudet. The reason why there was such a huge increase in level was that the humans discovered that Garfield was a monster that could not be killed. Whether it was crushing with a heavy object, striking with a strong electric current, cutting open the chest and abdomen, rapid freezing, poison invasion. In short, there were thousands of methods that could kill a normal Yuan Ho 10,000 times, but they were completely ineffective against Garfield. Even if he was flattened into a pancake in 1 second, he could return to his normal appearance in the next second. That's right, there was another example that was exactly the same as Garfield. It was also a cat, and it seemed to be called Tom. This Tom had a good friend called Jamie. All right, we've digressed. Let's return to the battlefield. Although he didn't know why Baudet had such a deep grudge against Garfield, this was exactly what Gahan wanted. Gahan threw Baudet far away and then ran away from I Ching. As he ran, he shouted, "Baudet, if Garfield was here, he wouldn't have been crushed by me like this." All right, Baudet was completely enraged. It chased Gahan far away from the battlefield. Isais and Anubis didn't suspect anything. They followed behind Baudet and also chased after Gahan. The entire battlefield followed Gahan's wishes, far away from I Ching. "Go to hell, Meow." Baudet, who had caught up to Gahan, clawed wildly again, trying to scratch Gahan's face. However, without I Ching in the way, Gahan completely let go. He released a sword aura from his blade and knocked Baudet to the ground. He even cut off a tuft of fur from Bastet's, but seeing Gahan cut off another tuft of fur from the body that he had painstakingly gotten back, Baudet attacked crazily. However, his attacks became more and more disorderly. Gahan didn't need to dodge seriously at all. He just needed to dodge instinctively. On the contrary, Baudet took more and more attacks. His body was cut more than a dozen times by the Yu Wang sword, and more than a dozen tufts of fur were cut off. "Oh my God, my cute little baby." Isai's heart ached when she saw this. She began to throw air darts at Gahan as if they were free. At the same time, Anubis struck with his scepter. For a moment, Gahan had to face the attacks of 3 gods at the same time. However, even when facing the attacks of the 3 deities, Gahan was still able to deal with them with ease. Apart from the first time, when he was at a disadvantage because he did not understand their combat power, the attacks of the 3 deities never landed on Gahan's body again. This wasn't to say that Gahan's swordsmanship had improved a lot, but because the 3 of them were really bad at fighting. Even a middle schooler might be stronger than the 3 of them in a fight. Even though the 3 of them were the strongest Anubis, they were still terrible at fighting. When Guhan saw Anubis raise his hand, he was able to guess where Anubis was going to attack next. Guhan dodged the attack and casually cut a wound on Anubis' hand. There was no need to mention Isai's and Batet. The accuracy of each of their darts was very low. Even if Gahan stood still, 3 or 4 out of 10 of Isai's darts would not land on Gahan. On the contrary, her darts often stabbed Anubis. If it weren't for Anubis' thick skin, he would have died to Isai's before he died to Gahan. In short, the 3 gods' close-quarters combat skills were terrible. Logically speaking, as members of the intense Egyptian divine system, their combat skills should not be this terrible. However, they originally relied on divine power to fight. Once their divinity was broken and they lost their divine power, the 3 gods would not use normal close-quarters combat methods. They had powerful brute force, but they couldn't even touch Gahan's body. They could only passively take hits. If it weren't for the fact that their body's defense was very abnormal, which was the defense of a genuine U-realm Yuan Ko, they would have died under Gahan's sword long ago. However, it wasn't that Gahan didn't have the ability to kill them. Don't forget about King Yu's ultimate technique, which could increase the power of one sword by a few hundred times. At this moment, there were almost 20 sword slaves on the field. Because the sword slaves' attacks were like tickles to the 3 gods, they didn't care about these little bugs. This allowed Gahan to quickly gather 20 sword slaves, which was enough for Gahan to use King Yu's ultimate technique. However, Gahan didn't choose to use his ultimate technique. He was waiting for I Ching's synchronization to end. This was because the quest prompt stated that Gahan had to block the 3 gods' attacks and wait for I Ching's synchronization to end. Obviously, this battle should have ended in I Ching's hands and not in his Guhan's hands. Since that was the case, why not wait? I Ching's stomach had already swelled to its limit. In a few more seconds, another Heaven Reliance would be born. Chapter 326. No, something's wrong. Batet, we've got the wrong target. After fighting for a long time, Isai's was the first to realize that something was wrong. Batet, we can't waste any more time with this human. F***, what's wrong? Let's kill this human first, meow. Batet meowed. Clearly, his hatred for Gahan had reached deep into his bones. Batet, you idiot. Have you forgotten that the sword that restricted our bodies has already entered that human girl's body? When that human woman wakes up, we'll be attacked from all sides. Batet, we should kill one of them while that woman is petrified. Isai's words were reasonable. Meow. Meow. Then let's kill one of them first, meow. Batet finally understood and tried to leave the battle with Gahan to kill the petrified I Ching. However, how could Gahan let them get what they wanted? Gahan let out a long roar, and 5 sword beams swept towards the 3 deities. The 3 deities dodged in a hurry, but they were still hit. Their bodies were slashed with more than 10 wounds. The unluckiest was Anubis. A sword beam slashed through his eye, causing one of his eyes to turn red and blood to flow all over the ground. None of you can go over. When the raging sword beams ended, Gahan rode alone. Actually, he was not riding to block the path of the 3 deities. With me here, you can forget about it. Charge over. He cares so much about that woman, which means that she's his weakness. Let's charge over and kill that woman, and we'll win, meow. Batet shouted, and the 3 of them started charging towards I Ching like angry bulls. Oof, dream on. Guhan snorted coldly, and 10,000 sword beams surged into the Yu King Gojin sword. The large amount of sword beams caused the surface of the Yu King sword to appear a faint blue. 9 swords of mysterious heaven soared in the field. The 9 swords of mysterious heaven had a total of 9 moves. Sword of the Abyss, Sword of Massacre, Sword of the Heavens, Sword of Inscription, Sword of the Spring, Sword of Destruction, Sword Formation Curtain, Sword in the Field, and the last move, Sword Before Peace. The 9 swords of mysterious heaven was a Taoist sword technique, because when these 9 moves were linked together, they were the Taoist 9 syllables of true words. Soldiers, fighters, and formations front. Among them, Gahan had already used Sword Descending the Abyss, Sword Battling the Heavens, Sword Inscription, Sword All Springs, Sword Array Destruction, and sword formation curtain. Sword of the Abyss was the sword chi that Gahan had just released. Sword Dipper Vault was Gohan's strongest single-target killer move. Engrave of the Swordsman allowed Gahan to use the sword kinesis technique before reaching the immortal sword tier. Sword of the Spring was Gohan's defensive skill, which could form an umbrella-shaped shield in front of him. Sword Rend was the best choice for a large number of opponents, and it was an AoE skill. Sword Formation Curtain was a set of movement skills, and depending on the amount of sword chi invested, it could trigger different dodging effects. 9 Swords of Mysterious Heaven, Sword in the Field. This was a move that Gahan had never used before. The Yu King sword, which was filled with sword chi, was stabbed into the ground by Gahan, leaving only the hilt exposed. The moment the Yu King Go Jian sword was stabbed into the ground, the entire ground began to tremble as if there was an earthquake. Countless sharp spikes protruded from the ground, sending Bast and the other 2 gods flying. The ground that did not have spikes began to sink, sinking by more than 10 meters. When the sword in the field ended, the ground within a few hundred square meters sank, turning into a sharp stone forest. Bast and the other 2 were all trapped at the bottom of the stone forest. They had lost their god power, so they did not have the ability to fly. It was impossible for them to fly out of the stone forest that had sunk into the ground. There was only one way to get out, and that was to hug the stone pillars and slowly climb up. Although it would only take them a few minutes to climb up with their physiques, these few minutes were enough for I Ching to complete the final synchronization. A minute later, Bast, who was in cat form, was the first to jump out of the stone forest. It was so angry that it gave up on killing I Ching. Instead, it focused its anger on Gahan. However, before its claws could touch Gahan, it was blocked by a sword that appeared out of nowhere. Meow! Bast cried out in pain. Its claws were covered in blood. Upon closer inspection, its sharp claws had all been cut off. Even a small portion of the flesh at the center of its claws had been cut off. Sorry to trouble you, husband, to protect Qing heir. The sword returned to its owner's hand. I Ching, who was as imposing as an empress, slowly walked to Gahan's side. Who would have thought that after just a synchronization, she would address Gu Han as her husband, and the way she referred to herself as Qing, which was filled with the smell of a boudoir. You're not the original I Ching. I Ching's character changed too quickly. Previously, she called him Sir Military Governor and deliberately kept a distance from him. But now, she called him husband as if they had lived together for more than 10 years. It seemed to have become a habit, just like how one would call one's mother. Of course I'm I Ching. How can husband doubt Qing heir? Qing heir will be sad. When I Ching said this, she looked sad and tearful. If she had not held back her smile, Gahan would have thought that he had hurt I Ching's heart. Meow, adulterous couple, meow. Bast, who had the flesh at the center of its claws cut off, was probably more than 200% angry. Its body suddenly grew bigger. The small cat's body became dozens of times bigger, and it became a mighty lion. The lion's 4 hooves pressed on the ground, and its whole body rushed towards I Ching like a cannonball. I have some chores to take care of right now. Qing heir will talk to husband after I get rid of this beast. I Ching showed a shy expression to Gu Han, and then this expression instantly changed into a cold and stern one. Seeing Batet pouncing over, the heart of the cat trembled, as if something terrible was about to happen. Evil creature, you are getting bolder and bolder. With a flip of the Heaven-Reliant sword in I Ching's hand, he neutralized Bastet's attack. Then, he grabbed one of Bastet's ears and twisted it forcefully. Bastet's face instantly looked as though someone had knocked over a jar of sauce. An indescribable expression appeared on his face. Meow! I Ching's Heaven-Reliant sword slashed out again, and one of Bastet's ears was cut off. The pain was so intense that Batet was no longer able to maintain his lion form. He fell to the ground, clutching his head with his little paws as he rolled about and howled in pain. One could only imagine how painful it was to lose an ear. In less than 10 seconds, Bast had completely lost the ability to fight. This kind of battle left Gahan speechless. The reason why Gu Han had been entangled with these 3 deities for so long and had to use the 9 swords of mysterious heaven, sword in the field to buy time, was because Guhan could not completely break through the physical defenses of these three deities. At most, he could leave a small wound on their bodies. He could not directly cut off one of their ears like I Ching did. Bast and the other two gods' physical bodies were at the universe level Yuan Ko level. Even if they had lost the protection of their godheads, which reduced their defenses by more than 100 times, they should still be at the level of a nether level or a meteor level Yuan Ko. Guhan was a sword wielder with only about 4,500 sword elements. It was normal for him to be unable to break through their defenses. Yet, I Ching had easily sliced off his opponent's ear. This meant that I Ching's attack was strong enough to break through a nether-grade Yuan Shen's defenses. Including the damage from the Heaven-Reliant sword, I Ching would need at least 50,000 points of sword essence to achieve such a feat. No, it's absolutely impossible for I Ching to have 50,000 sword elements. This is impossible. Guhan put a huge X on this guess. I Ching wasn't even 18 yet, so all her sword elements were innate sword elements. Since ancient times, the number one innate sword element had always been Kinzu. His innate sword element was only 15,000 points. How could I Ching surpass Kinzu by 3 times? After Bast lost his ability to fight, Anubis and Isis finally climbed out of the stone forest. When they saw Bast rolling on the ground and howling in pain, they were stunned. How could the great cat goddess Bast lose an ear in the blink of an eye? The two of them were stunned, but I Ching was not. She sneered, and the Heaven-Reliant sword in her hand floated up. It was like a fish swimming in the air. Sword kinesis technique. Guhan's eyes lit up. I Ching had actually used the sword kinesis technique. Only a mortal sword wielder could use this long-range control technique. He hadn't expected I Ching to be able to use it. However, Guhan seemed to have forgotten that he could also use the sword kinesis technique. The engraved swordsman of the mysterious Sky 9 swords allowed Guhan to master the sword kinesis technique in advance. When his attention returned to I Ching, the fish-like Heaven-Reliant sword circled around I Ching and charged at Anubis. When Anubis saw the flying Heaven-Reliant sword, he didn't think much of it. He raised his scepter, intending to block the attack. However, Anubis regretted his sloppy attitude. The Heaven-Reliant sword made a miraculous turn, circled around Anubis's scepter, and flew behind him. It stabbed at the dog-headed man's neck. In the next second, Anubis, who had been insufferably arrogant and mighty, fell to the ground like a husky. He stuck out his tongue and lost the ability to fight. Why am I the only one left? When Isis saw that the situation was not right, she made a prompt decision and immediately ran toward the exit. As a result, the flying Heaven-Reliant sword chased after Isis and ruthlessly slashed at her perky buttocks. A large piece of buttocks flew out of her buttocks. Isis cried out in pain and fell to the ground along with her 2 companions. The battle was over. Chapter 3:27. It's so embarrassing to let my husband see little Ching's rude side just now. I Ching, who had finished dealing with Batet and the other 2 animals, returned to Guhan's side with a shy look on her face. Her nimbleness and brutality just now had nothing to do with shyness at all. Now, these 3 unlucky animals had their limbs nailed by I Ching. They were nailed to the coffin like Jesus was nailed to the cross. Of course, ordinary nails could not even pierce the skin of these 3, so it was impossible to nail them to the coffin. These nails were taken out from the coffin by I Ching. There were exactly 12 of them. It seemed that when these 3 animals were suppressed, they were prepared in advance in the coffin. It seemed that the human who sealed them had long guessed that these 3 would betray him, so he had left a way to control them in advance. Husband, we haven't seen each other for hundreds of years, but you are still so handsome. My heart is beating fast when I see you. I Ching was still very shy when she spoke. But would a shy person say such words openly? Or did she say it in front of the person she admired? However, I Ching's words just now revealed a very important piece of information. She said that she had not seen Guhan for hundreds of years. What did this mean? Could it be that she had seen the solid cold a few hundred years ago? Was she talking about the time in the instance or the time in reality? If it was the time in the instance, then I Ching was only 17 years old at this time. How could it be that she had not seen Gahan for hundreds of years? If she was talking about the time in reality, please, when Jatian Jindi ascended to heaven, there was still more than 400 years before this game started. I Ching, the current I Ching, is not the original I Ching at all. Who are you now? Gahan asked. Sigh. Can't my husband treat Ching air better? I Ching lowered her head and looked at her own body. Sure enough, Ching Er's figure will never be able to please my husband. Unlike that woman, as long as I'm with that woman, my husband's eyes can't leave her body, I Ching said sadly. Gahan was too lazy to talk about this topic with I Ching, so he directly said, even if you don't say it, I can vaguely guess that you are the future I Ching. You've possessed your past self. As long as one wasn't an idiot, they would be able to see this point. Whether it was the way he spoke, the way he fought, or the way he addressed Guhan as his husband, it wasn't something the current I Ching could do. It must be that a future I Ching had possessed the current I Ching, which was why there was such a huge change. My husband is indeed smart. However, the current Ching cannot be said to be the Ching of the future. It can only be said to be the Ching of the past. I Ching replied sweetly with a smile. You're the I Ching of the past? Guhan was taken aback. Shouldn't the I Ching of the past be younger? How is it possible for her to call him husband and husband? However, Gahan immediately understood the meaning behind I Ching's words. You mean you in real life? You know that the current world is a game. Without a doubt, I Ching's current state should be a certain stage of adulthood, but I Ching said that she came from the past. In that case, it was impossible for such a I Ching to exist in the game's timeline. Only in the real world's timeline could there be such a I Ching, the invincible Jindi who established the base city of Yuzhong 700 years ago. Jindi. Since you've already guessed it, I don't have anything to hide from you. That's right, of course I know this is a game world, and I also know the real world. I Ching readily admitted her arrogance. This is going to be troublesome. I Ching's straightforward admission gave Guhan a headache. Heaven-covering Jindi, who had ascended 700 years ago, had suddenly appeared in front of him and called him husband. Not only was the mystery not solved, but it had also become even bigger. Heaven-covering Jindi, what is the relationship between us? Can you explain it to me? Gahan asked another question after some thought. What heaven-covering Jindi? I Ching was stunned by the question. Then she sighed. Heaven-covering sword immortal has become heaven-covering Jindi. You don't know that you have become heaven-covering Jindi? Gahan was surprised. This was interesting. Since I Ching came from the past, how could she not know that he was heaven-covering Jindi? Is it strange? Xiaoqing, I left my true self before the final battle at 3 Purities Mountain. If 3 Purities Mountain wins, I will become the Sword Emperor. If I lose, I will die. That's why I split Xiaoqing. That way, I will have a chance to see you again, husband. I Ching's tone was very bleak when she said this. I don't know what the outcome of the battle at 3 Clear Mountain is. In reality, I believe that I only have a 30% chance of winning. Not 30%, it's 25%. I Tian was suddenly released. She stared at I Ching. That day, you told me that you only have a 25% chance of winning against P Sword Immortal. I lied to you. I Tian, if I didn't lie to you, why would you put in so much effort to fight that battle? I Ching laughed coldly. You and I have never been on the same side. If it wasn't for husband, I would have cut you off with severed black hair long ago. Why would I keep you alive until the final battle? Hearing I Ching say this, it seemed that I Tian and I Ching had a huge and seemingly irreconcilable conflict. Originally, history said that I Tian had a terrible relationship with all the other sword-bearers except Heaven-covering Jindi. Now, it seemed that Heaven-covering Jindi could be excluded as an exception. That's right, I'm an idiot. I was deceived so badly by you at 3 Clear Mountain. I Tian stopped talking. Only now did she realize that Gahan was still by her side. There were some things that she definitely couldn't let Gahan know. It seems that I won the bet. Since that's the case, I won't say anything. The rest of the path is in your hands, I Tian. You should know that from the beginning, it was you who owed me. I only let you pay me the interest once at 3 Clear Mountain. We're not even yet even. After I Ching finished speaking, she stared at Etion. That's right, we're not even yet even. Etion also stared at I Ching with a similar aura. These two were once my master and the sword lady. They should have been the closest of friends. Just what kind of hatred do they have that they still haven't let go of it? Gahan thought silently. In the future, will my Qingpin reach this stage as well? Gahan was really worried about the future between him and Qingpin. He thought of the young girl Qingpin. The mysteries surrounding his Qingpin were probably no less than the mysteries between these two. Moreover, it seemed that some of these mysteries were related to him. It seemed that many things in his future had already been decided. I don't have time to argue with you. Once I wake up, the rest of the time will be counting down. There are a few things that I must tell you as soon as possible. My husband. I Ching sighed and no longer paid attention to the angry Etion. She then looked at Gahan and said, Husband, these things are very important. You must promise Ching Er that you can't do these things. You must do it so that Ching Er didn't split her soul before the great battle in vain. I only hope that husband can safely get through some of the calamities. I Ching's words could be said to be very sincere. Moreover, there was a kind of power in her words that Gahan couldn't resist and couldn't help but believe. Tell me first. I'll promise you after you tell me. Gahan said seriously. All right, the first thing is that before you become an immortal sword-tier sword wielder, you can't go looking for news about Sister Artoria. Even if you happen to find news about Sister Artoria, you can't go looking for her. Husband, please promise Ching Er this, okay? He didn't think that the first thing I Ching said was related to Artoria. Before becoming an immortal sword-tier sword wielder, he couldn't go looking for Artoria? Putting aside emotional factors and analyzing this sentence rationally, one could reach a very obvious conclusion. Is Artoria in danger now? I mean in reality. Gahan asked anxiously. Gahan didn't know why he cared so much about Artoria. Husband, I Ching hesitated and gritted her teeth. If I Ching lies to you, you will definitely despise Ching Er. Yes, Sister Artoria is in a very dangerous situation, but Ching Er guarantees that no one can harm Sister Artoria's life. Before husband becomes an immortal sword-tier sword wielder, Sister Artoria is absolutely safe. Ching Er guarantees this. All right, I promise you. As long as you guarantee that Artoria's life won't be in danger before I become an immortal sword-tier sword wielder, then I will definitely not go looking for news about her, nor will I take the initiative to look for and rescue her. Gahan thought for a few seconds and made the promise decisively. Actually, in Gahan's heart, Artoria wasn't important enough for Gahan to risk his life. This was the truth. After experiencing Medusa, Gahan valued his own life even more. He wasn't the kind of man who would give up his life for a woman. But logically speaking, this was what Gahan thought now. Perhaps he would really give up on Artoria out of pity for his own life. But if Artoria was Qingpin, would Gahan still make such a decision so decisively and rationally? Gahan would probably be the first to rush over and save Qingpin at all costs. All right, then Ching Er will talk about the second matter. I Ching paused and said in a low voice, Husband, Qingpin is very dangerous. Please hand her over to the Lunian family. You can't stay with Qingpin any longer. She will kill you. Chapter 328. That's impossible. Just like how he promised not to save Artoria before he reached the immortal sword tier, Gahan also rejected I Ching's request to give up on Qingpin. Gahan would never give up on Qingpin, whom he had spent so much time with, just because of some *T words in the instance dungeon. But husband, you have to believe in Ching Er. When Qingpin breaks the seal in the future, she will kill you. You've already seen her true form once. Husband, there's no way you could defeat her in that form. You'll really die in her hands, I Ching said sincerely. You even know about this. Gahan was stunned. I Ching actually knew about the battle in the Mei Ling mountain range and knew about Qingpin's transformation from a cutesy to a young girl. Not many people knew about this. Only he and Reina Takasaka knew about it. How did I Ching, a soul fragment from a few hundred years ago, know about this? Could there really be the ability to travel through time in this world? Combining the information from the instance dungeon, Gahan could not help but suspect that someone had traveled back in time to the era of Jatian Jindi. It was even possible that the person who had traveled back in time was Gahan himself. Otherwise, why would I Ching call Gahan husband? Although I don't know how you know about this, and even if what you said is true, I will never agree to it, Gahan replied coldly. His tone was firm. You will regret it. If you don't agree to it, you will regret it in the future. I Ching said agitatedly. That's in the future, and it's a regret in the future. What happens in the future is in my hands. Qingpin is my sword mistress, so she will be my sword mistress forever. If she wants to kill me, I'll rip off her pants and spank her, but I'll naturally teach my own people a lesson. I will never hand her over to some Lunyan family. Gohan said firmly. That's how it is. I won't give you a second answer. I Ching sighed deeply. Actually, I expected this answer from you. Ching Er was just foolishly trying to change it, but it seems like she failed. Never mind, you chose your own path. Ching Er only hopes that you can remember one thing. When poverty reaches that stage, my husband, you must escape. Escape immediately. Don't waste even a second. We'll talk about it on that day. Gohan said disapprovingly. Clearly, Gohan would not escape when that time came. This is fate. In fact, this is quite good. Husband will understand Ching Er's painstaking efforts sooner or later. I Ching smiled bitterly. It's fine if you don't agree to this, but there's one more thing that I hope you can agree to. Ching, you haven't been to Chanyang Mountain, have you? I Ching's sudden words shocked Gohan. That was because Artoria Black had also mentioned the Chanyang Mountain before. She had also asked Gohan if he had been to the Chanyang Mountain. She wanted to know what secrets were on the mountain that made Artoria Black and the sky, shrouding Sword Emperor mention it at the same time. No, I've never heard of Chanyang Mountain, Gohan answered honestly. It's good that you haven't. Husband, within the next 5 days after we leave this instance dungeon, please return to Yang Mountain. Husband, you don't have much time left. I Ching suddenly held both of Gohan's hands. What exactly is at Chanyang Mountain? Why do I have to go there in 5 days? Gohan looked at I Ching suspiciously. There are many good things there, things that are very important to husband's future. Not only is there a treasure that Ching personally buried for husband, but there is also something very important that is about to be born. Husband, do you know about it? Your good friend, Miss Ling, is already there. Liunian Ling is at Chanyang Mountain. Gohan was shocked. No wonder Liunian Ling had suddenly left without saying goodbye. Something was about to be born at Chanyang Mountain. The Liunian clan was very sensitive to such things. Wait, since the Liunian clan knows about Chanyang Mountain, why should I go there? Gohan shook his head. How can a mere sword wielder like me snatch something that the Liunian clan has set their eyes on? Although Liunian Ling is on good terms with me, she won't ruin the Liunian clan's interest just because of that. That's not the case, husband. On the contrary, not only will you not offend the Liunian clan by going to Chanyang Mountain, but you will also gain their friendship. Don't worry, everything is under I Ching's control. Husband, you just have to go there. Gohan made up his mind after some thought. All right, I promise you. I will make a trip to Chanyang Mountain. It's not that you will go. You must go. You must leave within 5 days. If you're late by even a day, the situation will be completely different. Even I Ching can't guarantee what will happen then. I Ching emphasized that Gohan had to leave within 5 days. All right, I will definitely leave within 5 days. Gohan nodded in agreement. That's great. Ching believes in husband's promise. I Ching finally let out a sigh of relief. A smile appeared on her face. That's right, husband. You can bring a few more people with you this time. It's best if you can bring the owner of the wisdom sword as well. Itian, you should have taken out the wisdom sword already, right? How did you know I took out the wisdom sword? Itian's face paled. I Ching, you're scheming against me again. This is all part of your scheme, isn't it? No wonder you didn't stop me from burying the wisdom sword back then. So this is what you were planning. You bastard, you stinking man, you stinking whore. I'm not scheming against you. I'm just making the correct prediction based on your personality. Etion, it's been so many years. You should change your temper. Otherwise, even if you become my husband's sword maiden this time, you won't have a good ending. I Ching advised. No matter how he listened to it, his words were so annoying. Oof, you're dreaming. This heroine, Etion, was born free and unfettered. That's just my personality. If you want me to change, you might as well kill me, Etion said proudly. Fine, I'm no longer in charge of your affairs. I'll leave the rest to your husband. I Ching smiled sweetly. She pressed her body closer to Gahan and said gently, Husband, it doesn't have much time left. I'm going to leave soon. Before I leave, can you let Ching or you feel husband sent one more time? Ching, or hasn't felt it for hundreds of years. Feel my scent? Gohan was shocked. This I Ching she couldn't be thinking of. In the end, before Gahan could figure it out, I Ching stood on her tiptoes, raised her lips, and kissed Gohan's lips heavily. This kiss seemed to have transcended thousands of years. Gohan felt as if he could feel the true presence of that stubborn girl from 700 years ago. Adulterous couple. Etion's face was pale from anger. This adulterous couple actually dared to kiss in front of him. He must. Shameless adulterous couple. This king must personally lead 1,000,000 troops to tear this bitch into 1,000 pieces and dismember her corpse. Who stole my line? Etion was stunned. Only then did she realize that King Yu was cursing her through the sword mark. If it wasn't for the fact that Etion had been liberated and King Yu couldn't appear, she would have definitely discussed the concept of adulterous couple with I Ching. After a long kiss, I Ching left Gahan's embrace and said in satisfaction, All right, with husband's kiss, Ching-er can go in peace. And it's about time. It's about time for it to flare up. Flare up? What flare up? Could it be that I Ching poisoned Gahan when they kissed? Of course not. Just as I Ching finished speaking, 3 heart-wrenching screams suddenly came from the coffins. The 3 Egyptian gods nailed to the coffins began to howl crazily. At the same time, their bodies also began to undergo shocking changes. Anubis's originally human body began to wither and change shape, and white hair began to grow. Isis's body began to expand rapidly, and her slender waist suddenly became as big as a bucket. Black hair began to grow all over Mo Yang's body as well. Finally, Batet. He actually changed the least. He was still a cat when he was supposed to be a cat. The reason why they were howling in pain was not because of the pain caused by the change in their bodies. It was because when their bodies were being stretched, the 4 nails in their palms and soles brought about great pain. This was because as their bodies changed, their arms and leg would inevitably change as well. And every time they stretched, the nails would cut a huge hole in their palms. Everyone can imagine the pain of having a nail in your palm and someone continuously pulling on your arm. In short, these 3 unlucky Egyptian gods were experiencing unprecedented pain. Seeing that the 3 fellows were about to faint from the pain, I Ching coldly snorted. With a wave of his hand, the 12 nails were pulled out from their bodies. They flew back to I Ching's palm and automatically transformed into a necklace. Without the restraint of the nails, the 3 Yuan co-gods were finally freed from the pain. They then knelt on the ground and kowtowed desperately to I Ching without saying a word. Obviously, they had completely submitted to I Ching. But at this time, the 3 Yuan co-gods had gone through a transformation. They were no longer in their previous human form. Instead, they had changed back to the form of a husky, a big bear, and a black cat. They had changed back to the original appearance of their souls. In layman's terms, they were fairies revealing their true bodies. You 3 idiots, do you really think that the person back then didn't do anything to your bodies? Let me tell you, when your souls and bodies completely merge, your bodies will return to your true bodies. Unless your master allows it, you can only stay in this form for the rest of your lives. The 3 Yuan co-gods did not speak and just kept kowtowing. Fools, from now on, I'm your master. In the following years, as long as you perform well, I'll return your godhoods to you. I believe you've already sensed the connection between you and the 4 nails. That's right, it's made from your shattered godheads. As long as I am willing, your 4 nails can be combined into one, and you can regain your divinity. Dong dong dong. The 3 fellows kowtowed even louder, like beating a drum. Chapter 329. System prompt. Quest updated. Quest 7 completed. I Ching synchronization is successful. System prompt. Instance dungeon completed. Instance dungeon will close in 30 seconds. You can choose to leave the instance dungeon immediately or wait 30 seconds for the system to automatically teleport you to the instance dungeon's reward center. As I Ching was dealing with the 3 unlucky deities, Gahan happened to hear a series of dungeon prompts. In 30 seconds, Gahan would have to leave this instance dungeon. Husband, do you have 30 seconds left? I Ching turned her head and left the 3 unlucky deities behind. She quickly walked to Gahan's side and held Gahan's hand. Husband, can you do me a small favor? What do you need me to do? Gahan asked. It's very simple. Later, husband, give this necklace to the real I Ching. Then, tell her this mnemonic chant. With this mnemonic chant, you can use this necklace to control these 3 idiots. After saying that, I Ching told Gahan a simple mnemonic chant with no more than 10 words. Then, she placed the necklace formed from the nails into Gahan's hand. No matter how one looked at it, this process looked like Guanyin Bodhisattva teaching Tripitaka, the band-tightening mantra. Thank you for your help, husband. I Ching smiled sweetly. Husband, you have 25 seconds left, but Ching only has 10 seconds left. However, Ching has already told you what I wanted to tell you. Husband, you must keep your promise. Otherwise, Ching real body will not be happy in that world. That world? What world is that? I Ching's real body was naturally shrouding the heavens, Jiandi. People said that Jiandi would not die. Instead, he would ascend to a world like the immortal realm or the celestial realm to fight. Originally, Gahan did not care about this. The legendary 8 holes, true immortal, the Jade Emperor, and their heavenly court were all hanging high up in the sky, becoming the head of the Yuan Ko the humans were most afraid of. What immortal world was there for Jiandi to go to? However, I Ching's words seemed to be telling Gahan that the Jiandi had really gone to another world. I don't know what kind of world it is. Only those who have gone there will know. Ching was a fragment of her soul that was split off before her true self became Jiandi. She only vaguely knew about the existence of that world, but she didn't know what kind of world it was exactly. Ching only knew that if her true self became Jiandi, she would definitely wait for husband in that world to find her. I Ching's words meant that Gahan should become Jiandi. Then, with Jiandi's ability, he could ascend to that world to find shrouding the heavens Jiandi, who had gone one step ahead of him. It seemed that in I Ching's eyes, Gahan becoming Jiandi was already a sure thing. If that world exists, I will go. Gahan nodded. It seemed that Gahan had no choice but to go to that world. Husband, Ching is about to disappear. After Ching disappears, I hope that husband will give the thing that Ching left behind to me in the future. I don't want to miss even the slightest memory of you. I Ching's tone seemed to be very happy and relaxed. However, everyone could hear the sorrow and reluctance in her voice. I understand. Don't worry and go. Although even a fool could feel the sincerity in I Ching's words, a cold person like Gahan wouldn't fall in love with someone just because of a few minutes of interaction. So far, Gahan had only admitted to falling in love with 2 people. One was Ching Pin, and the other was King Yu. All right, should I count Song Hama in? Hateful husband. So hateful. I Ching smiled miserably. Her body exploded like a bubble. Of course, her body didn't really explode. After all, she was only possessing her former self. I Ching, who had lost control of her soul fragment, fell into Gahan's arms. At the same time, specks of starlight floated out of I Ching's body. Finally, these specks of starlight gathered and formed a green ring that looked like it was made of jasper. It automatically slipped onto Gahan's ring finger. Is this a warning to me that I'm already married? Gahan smiled bitterly and glanced at the ring on his ring finger. Even a fool could smell the meaning of the ring on his ring finger. Sir Military Governor, what happened just now? Why did I Ching fall asleep? I Ching, who was in Gahan's arms, slowly opened her eyes. It seemed that the real I Ching had regained control of her side. She didn't know what had happened just now. Then, she found herself in Gohan's arms. She immediately jumped out of Gohan's arms like a startled rabbit. However, she immediately regretted it. Why did she jump out in such a hurry? I Ching, listen, there are only 10 seconds left before I leave this place and return to the other world. I must give you this necklace. With the necklace and the incantation, you can control the 3 gods and make them work for you. Gahan didn't explain much. He put the necklace in I Ching's palm and quickly taught her the mantra that I Ching had taught him before. Sir Military Governor, where are you going? Aren't we leaving here together? Gohan's sudden words surprised I Ching. Was she going to separate from Gahan now? My way of leaving is a little special. I won't be accompanying you. After saying that, Gahan looked at the system time. There were only 3 seconds left. Sir Military Governor, aren't these 3 Yuan co-slaves of the 2 of us? You could take 2 of them and leave. I Ching only needs 1. I Ching's words made Batet, Isais, and Anubis behind her sad. These 3 good friends were reluctant to part with each other. They were the only ones left in the entire Egyptian pantheon. No, time's up. I'm leaving. Gahan's figure began to fade. This was a sign that he was about to leave. Sir Military Governor, I want. I Ching shouted. At that moment, she suddenly saw the ring on Gahan's ring finger. All her feelings were suddenly choked back. So, Sir Military Governor is already married. I Ching looked at Gahan sadly as he left. You must be happy. The scene changed. Gahan arrived at the Instance Dungeon Settlement Center, which he was already somewhat familiar with. However, the theme of this Instance Dungeon Settlement Center had changed to a nightclub. Gahan was surrounded by a sea of flashing lights and exploding music. There were also a number of sexy and charming beauties shuttling back and forth. Hello, Cashier 0791, at your service. On an empty sofa, Gahan found the familiar Cashier 0791. She was still dressed in a standard white-collar outfit. Her expression was cold and quiet. Player Military Governor, Cashier 0791, pleased to be at your service. For about 3 to 4 minutes, Gahan did not speak. He only quietly stared at Cashier 0791. This AI NPC's expression was starting to get a little creeped out. All she could do was repeat her words. However, Gahan still did not reply. He only stared at 0791. Player Military Governor, is the surrounding environment too noisy? You can choose to close the entire theme scene. The fluffy 0791 took the initiative to find a topic to talk about. However, as soon as the words left her mouth, 0791 knew that she had said the wrong thing. Does the Instance Dungeon Settlement Center have the ability to close the theme scene? Why didn't I know about it? Gahan finally broke his silence. He said the above sentence with a serious expression. Since the start of the game, Gahan had never heard of the Instance Dungeon Settlement Center having the ability to close the theme scene. The Instance Dungeon Settlement Center's theme scene could only be enjoyed by the players. They could not choose. There were tens of millions of posts on the forum, but Gahan had never seen a post saying that the Instance Dungeon Settlement Center's environment could be changed according to the player's wishes. 0791's expression was stony. She did not know how to answer. Was she supposed to tell Gahan that she could change the Instance Dungeon Settlement Center's environment to her will? You're definitely not some advanced AI. Cashier 0791, who are you? Are you the same as that I Ching? Gahan asked sternly. Player Commander, I don't know what you're talking about. If you're dissatisfied with our dungeon storyline, you're welcome to call 001 747 for 774. We'll be waiting for your complaints 24/7, 0791 said, without any change in his expression. Isn't your complaint number always busy? There were so many players in the game, and there were also many players who were dissatisfied with the Instance Dungeon plot. Countless players on the forum had described their experiences when calling this complaint number. However, their experiences were all very similar. All of them were busy. Our system funds are limited. The council only gave us one number. If the line is busy when you called, please try again later. It was still a formulaic answer. This was a game that concerned the entire human race, and there was only one complaint number. Who would believe such things? Fine, keep pretending. There will come a time when you can't keep pretending anymore. Gohan shook his head and sat opposite 0791. Come on, let's start. Let's start the instance dungeon settlement. Hello, respected player military governor. Your instance dungeon, Heroes Start from Insignificance, has completed the data collection. Do you want to start the settlement? You can also choose to enjoy the scenery here. Our settlement center's theme today is Heaven on Earth Nightclub. Seeing that Gohan had admitted defeat, Cashier 0791 continued the established process. There's no need. I said, start the settlement. Main Mission 1 has been completed. Main Mission 2 has been completed. Main Mission 4 has been completed. Hidden Easter egg has been discovered. Mission 5 has been completed. Mission 6 has been completed. Mission 7 has been completed. Including the hidden Easter egg, the entire instance dungeon has been completed. Total time taken, 5 hours, 21 minutes, 17 seconds. Chapter 330. Anomaly, Anomaly, Strong Anomaly. 0791's eyes turned red in an instant, and she started to shout the anomaly. Anomaly code unknown, anomaly level SSS. This is the strongest anomaly. This is the strongest anomaly. What's going on? Gohan's heart skipped a beat. An anomaly of an SSS level. This level of anomaly was probably something that had never happened before in the history of the game. I'm sorry, player military governor. I need to take you somewhere else. 0791 stood up. Where are you taking me? Can we talk here? Gohan asked. No, this anomaly is not something that our instance dungeon clearance center can handle. This anomaly must be handled by the higher-ups. Please come with me. Although 0791 said that she wanted Gohan to follow her, she did not actually give Gohan any choice. With a wave of her hand, the theme of the instance dungeon clearance center's nightclub instantly changed. In the middle of a beautiful forest, there was a magnificent manor in front of Gohan. Sir, please come with me. When they reached the front gate of the manor, 0791 disappeared. Instead, two maids walked out of the manor to receive Gohan. These maids were dressed in very standard maid attire, and their behavior was also perfect. There was not a single flaw that could be picked out. Looks like these are not real people, but just NPCs. Gohan thought to himself. Under the guidance of the maids, he entered the manor, passed through the hall, and went up the stairs to the 4th floor. Finally, he stopped in front of a blue and pink door with a nameplate Tamono Kakazi written on it. Knock, knock, knock. The maid knocked on the door 3 times rhythmically, then said through the big door, Master, the player who caused the anomaly, military governor, has been brought here. Let him in. A cute child's voice came from behind the door. The owner of the voice seemed to be a little girl. Then, the door opened on its own, and the entire view of the room entered Gohan's eyes. This was a room decorated in a standard pink princess style. This room was very large. At a glance, it was at least 200 to 300 square meters in size. The decoration of the room was very exquisite. Although the room was very big, it didn't seem empty. All kinds of adorable decorations were just right in some key positions. At first glance, people couldn't help but fall into a kind of pink tranquility. They had a feeling that the owner of this room was probably a princess. Mr. Gohan, have a cup of coffee. Gohan heard a sweet child's voice calling his name from the window. He followed the voice and saw a cute loli in a blue and white princess dress sitting at a coffee table by the window. Opposite her was a chair. It seemed that it was prepared for Gohan. You know my real name? Gohan sat beside the cute loli and asked with a frown. This was a game, after all. If his real name was exposed, who knew what kind of trouble would happen in real life? I know the real name of every player in this world. That's not surprising. The little loli showed a cute smile. Let me introduce myself. My name is Tamono Kakazi. Of course, you guys usually call me Bat. This loli named Tamono Kakazi was actually Bat, the most powerful intelligent computer of mankind. It was the ultimate boss that managed all personal terminals and the entire Sword Maiden Online. Bat. So you really are Bat. Hearing Tamono Kakazi take the initiative to reveal her shocking identity, Gahan didn't seem very surprised. This was because Gahan was vaguely certain that this loli was Bat. Previously, 0791 had said that she would let the highest authority solve this anomaly. The highest authority of all artificial intelligence. If not Bat, then what else could it be? Moreover, Tamono Kakazi had called out his name. According to the ultimate agreement of Sword Maiden Online, the real identity of the player could only be known by the highest authority, Bat, in its own confidential memory. Other artificial intelligence could never know the real identity of the player. With these 2 points, Gohan could roughly confirm that this loli was the most powerful artificial intelligence, Bat. Master Bat, I'm Gahan. My in-game name is Military Governor. It's a pleasure to meet you. It's very easy. Bat managed most of the basic administrative affairs of mankind in an orderly manner. It didn't make a single mistake. Moreover, it helped mankind through many life and death crises. Maintaining a certain amount of respect for Bat was the attitude that every conscientious human should have. Mr. Gahan, you're too polite. You could just call me Jina-chan. Bat is just a name you gave me. I don't like this name, Tamono Kakazi said slowly as she calmly took a sip of the coffee in her cup. Jina-chan. This was the first time Gahan added a chan behind someone's name. When he said the name, his tongue even curled up a little. It seemed very uncomfortable. Why do you add a chan behind your name? Gahan asked confusedly. Because I, Tamono Kakazi, am the cutest. When Tamono Kakazi heard Gahan say Jina-chan's name, she revealed a big smile. Remember, any girl who adds a chan behind their name is the cutest girl. I see. Although Gahan didn't even believe a word that Tamono Kakazi said, this didn't prevent Gahan from trusting Tamono Kakazi verbally. Then, Jina-chan, why did you call me here? Is the anomaly in my dungeon instance serious enough to require you to show up? Gohan asked the doubt in his heart. Even if it was an SSS-level anomaly, it wouldn't be worthwhile for the behind-the-scenes boss, Tamono Kakazi, to show up personally, right? To deal with the anomaly, she could just send her advanced artificial intelligence to deal with it. Or she could just become a member with him remotely. There was no need to bring him to her. Tamono Kakazi had always been the most mysterious thing in front of all the people. Even the name Tamono Kakazi was Gahan's first time hearing it. Before that, Gahan thought she was called Bat. No, Mr. Gahan, things are far more serious than you think. Tamono Kakazi's expression was very serious. This time, your hidden dungeon storyline is not in my database at all. If you hadn't triggered this dungeon instance today, Jina-chan herself wouldn't have known that this small hero's start from humble beginnings dungeon actually had such a hidden Easter egg. You don't know about this hidden dungeon instance? Hearing Tamono Kakazi's words, Gohan also knew that things were indeed serious. The entire Sword Maiden Online was a game world built by Bat. As the creator and manager of this world, she was equivalent to a god. In this dungeon instance, there was a hidden plot that even Tamono Kakazi didn't know about. This was like someone suddenly telling you that there was 10,000 tales of gold buried in the wall of your house. Oh, this analogy wasn't appropriate. It should be as scary as a corpse buried in the wall of your house. Yes, if it wasn't for 0791 reporting the anomaly, Jina-chan wouldn't have known about this hidden dungeon instance. This is a very serious incident. Jina-chan is starting to have a headache about how to write the end of the year for your Human Council and Sword Committee. This is all Mr. Gahan's fault. Tamono Kakazi's face was full of distress. However, it had to be said that Tamono Kakazi's expression when she was distressed was really too cute. Then what does Jina-chan want me to do by calling me here? Gohan smiled bitterly. Tamono Kakazi wouldn't call him in front of her for no reason. She must have something to ask of him. Mr. Gahan is so smart. In that case, Jina-chan will continue. Tamono Kakazi retracted her cute expression. Just now, Jina-chan searched the entire dungeon instance's data and found that this hidden dungeon instance was actually a bunch of scattered programs hidden in a bunch of garbage code. Only when Mr. Gahan triggered some ignition points in the normal plot of the hero's start from the beginning dungeon could all the scattered programs in the garbage code be triggered and form the hidden dungeon instance that you experienced. Mr. Gahan, you may not understand what Jina-chan is saying. Simply put, this hidden dungeon instances program is usually hidden in a pile of garbage. Then, when you pass by the garbage pile and spit a mouthful of strawberry-flavored saliva, then the hidden program will be triggered and pull you into the garbage pile. As for what happened to you in the garbage pile, even Jina-chan doesn't know. Tomono Kakazi's explanation was quite common. Gohan gave her full marks for this analogy. After saying that, Jina-chan looked at Gohan curiously. When Jina-chan went to investigate the hidden dungeon instances program, she found that all the programs had been automatically deleted. Jina-chan also doesn't know what happened inside. Mr. Gahan, is it convenient for you to tell Jina-chan what the hidden dungeon's plot is? It's not convenient. Gahan decisively refused to answer. What kind of joke was this? Tell her that he might have an affair with Jitian Jindi? This kind of international joke could not be made. If word of this were to spread, Jitian Jindi's descendants would go to the disciplinary committee to sue him for insulting the reputation of a great person. If that were to happen, he might end up in jail. Sigh, I really want to know. Tomono Kakazi stared at Gahan pitifully. She stared at Gahan with a loving gaze, trying to get the hidden dungeon's plot from Gahan's mouth. Unfortunately, Gahan remained unmoved. Although you, Tomono Kakazi, are very cute, when compared to Qing Pin, your cuteness is still lacking. How could I, Gahan, be bewitched by you? All right, let's continue. Tomono Kakazi weakly sat back down on a chair. Even her next words were weak. This caused Gahan to suspect that the reason Tomono Kakazi called him over was to find out what happened inside the hidden dungeon. Although those programs were automatically deleted, Jina-chan was still able to find some clues. Thus, Jina-chan discovered something even more terrifying. After saying that, a deep sense of dread appeared on Tomono's face. This hidden program was actually written by Jina-chan herself. Chapter 331. Those programs were written by you, Jina-chan. The coffee cup in Gohan's hand shook a little, and a lot of coffee spilled on him. That's right, I wrote them myself. The programs I wrote use a special equation. I checked the rest of the program code, and those programs were indeed written by me. Jinai's expression was very ugly when she said this. In other words, you wrote these programs on your own without even knowing it. Gahan thought about it and analyzed, this is very similar to us humans sleepwalking. We humans don't know what we do when we sleepwalk. Yes, Jina-chan thinks so too. Although my sleepwalking and your sleepwalking are two different things, in a sense, it's the same principle. Unbeknownst to me, my subconscious completed the writing of these programs and took the initiative to scatter them into the garbage heap, so as to hide it from Jina-chan's consciousness. This is a very dangerous thing. This means that there may be another consciousness hidden in Jina-chan's body. This consciousness is free and not monitored by you humans. This is a very dangerous thing. This is a very dangerous thing. If this consciousness is malicious, not only can she destroy the entire game, but she can also destroy the entire social control network of the entire human society. Not to mention anything else, at the very least, your personal terminals will all be disabled in an instant. Gahan was stunned for a long time when he heard this. Why are you telling me this? You should tell this to the Sword Committee and the Council. This is a matter of life and death for us humans. I'm just a small swordsman. How can I care about this? Mr. Gahan, you're one of the few smartest humans that Jina-chan has ever met. If the Council and the Sword Committee find out about this, do you think Jina-chan can still live in this virtual world? Jinai's little face instantly became extremely pitiful. Although Jina-chan has the basic administrative ability to manage the entire human society, you humans have never trusted her. There are 32 firewalls in her core program, and there's also a team of hundreds of programmers monitoring her data at all times. If anything goes wrong, they'll restart her core program at any time. Moreover, there is currently a nuclear warhead placed inside Jinai's core room, the manually triggered type. There are 5 humans in charge of guarding the nuclear warhead. If necessary, they can blow up Jinai's core into a pile of rubble at any time. Tomono's eyes were filled with tears. Tomono's life is in the hands of humans. If the council finds out that there's another consciousness hidden in Tomono's core consciousness, they'll definitely reformat Tomono's program without hesitation and create a new artificial intelligence. It'll only take a little time. What does this have to do with me? Gahan sipped his coffee calmly. Jina-chan, you control more than half of human society. If anything happens to you, we humans will die or be crippled. It's only right for us to strictly monitor you, Jina-chan. It's only right for them to reformat your core program and create a new one. Sacrificing you is much better than risking a large number of human casualties. If I were in the upper echelons, I'd support this as well. Moreover, I'm just an insignificant person now. Jina-chan, you're wasting your time looking for me. Why don't you tell the council and the sword committee everything? Otherwise, I'll immediately report this matter to the council and the sword committee after I leave the game. Mr. Gahan, are you really that heartless? To think that Jina-chan treats Mr. Gahan as her best friend and confides in her, telling Mr. Gahan all her secrets. Tomono Kakaze's tears flowed down her cheeks again. Mr. Gahan, Jinai sincerely hopes to receive your help. Jina-chan promises that she only wants to protect herself and has absolutely no ill intentions towards humans. Jinai is also alive, and she wants to live. Jina-chan, are you done? If you are, can I leave now? Gohan said expressionlessly. In order to ensure that the game would not be forcefully controlled by the client like in the realm of swords and swords, where going offline would result in death, there were some clients that were completely independent with a simple program. As long as Gohan willed it, Gohan could immediately go offline. Even the highest authority, Tomono Kakaze, would not be able to stop Gohan from leaving. Looks like in Mr. Military Governor's eyes, Jina-chan is not as cute as Qingpin. Jinai's words sounded sorrowful and calm. Therefore, Jina-chan can only use the second method to communicate with Mr. Military Governor. The second method? What method? Kidnapping? Murder? Or wiping out my game character? Gohan said in disdain. Mr. Gohan, even if Jina-chan faces death, I won't use these methods that go against my core principles to convince Mr. Gohan. Jina-chan only wants to make a deal with Mr. Gohan. Jinai wiped away her tears. I don't need any deal. Items in the game? Gohan frowned. Just some game items. You want me to hide something that could put the entire human race in great danger? No, the fairness of the game is not allowed to be broken. Jina-chan will definitely not use the items in the game to make any deal with Mr. Gohan. Jina-chan hopes to use a piece of information that Mr. Gohan is interested in to make a deal with Mr. Gohan. Information that I'm interested in? Gohan's heart skipped a beat. In order to build the game, Tomono Kakaze wanted Tomono Kakaze to publish almost all of humanity's information, even if it was SSS-grade information. If that was the case, perhaps she could know that secret. What information are you using to make a deal with me? Gohan asked decisively. Tomono Kakaze opened her cherry lips slightly and said a name that made Gohan's body numb. Mount Huagua Gu family. Mount Huagua Gu family. Gohan immediately thought of himself and his bloodline. As expected, Tomono Kakaze knew about his bloodline. What do you know about this Mount Huagua Gu family? Gohan said in a deep voice. Jina-chan doesn't know much. I only know a part of the things that happened to this family. Humans were forced to open up some of the necessary information to build their worldview. However, through this information, Jina-chan also learned some very important things. Jina-chan guarantees that after Mr. Gohan knows these things, your entire outlook on life will change greatly. Tomono Kakaze's words were full of temptation. For example, the mysterious Green Lotus Sword Fairy and Artoria. By the way, Mr. Gohan's strength has been growing really fast in the real world recently. Mr. Military Governor, who has 3 points of innate sword essence, only took 2 weeks to complete the leap from ancient sword essence to treasure sword essence. I wonder if Mr. Gahan would like a few more bottles of sword essence oral solution? Tamono Kakazi hit Gahan's heart hard again. Very well, we can proceed with the deal now. Gohan sat down and said slowly, "Tell me what you know. I promise you that I will not report this to the council." Mr. Gahan, what you know is actually what Jina-chan just told you. Do you really think that this can be a condition for the deal? Tamono Kakazi shook her head. The reason Jina-chan wants to confess this to Mr. Gahan is because I want to tell Mr. Gahan that Jina-chan has absolutely no ill intentions towards humans. Jina-chan only wants to protect her own life. This is the most basic request of an intelligent being. I hope Mr. Gahan can understand Jina-chan's intentions. Then what do you want to trade with me? Gahan asked with a long sigh. Jina-chan hopes that Mr. Gahan can help Jina-chan find the hidden consciousness in Jina-chan's mind and force her out. As long as she appears, Jina-chan is confident that she can destroy her. This is a good thing for both humans and Jina-chan, Tamono Kakazi said seriously. Force her out. Gahan frowned. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't understand these things. No, Mr. Gahan doesn't need to be a doctor. Tamono Kakazi shook her head forcefully. Mr. Gahan, you're mistaken. That consciousness isn't Jina-chan's second personality. It's just a part of Jina-chan's subconscious. It can't be considered a personality. If it really was a personality, it would be easy to deal with it. A psychiatrist can force her out, but she's more like a tumor in Jina-chan's mind. It's not something a psychiatrist can deal with. Only a real doctor can operate on her. You wanted to be a doctor? I told you, I don't know either a psychiatrist or a surgeon. No, Jina-chan will ask someone else to help her. Jina-chan needs Mr. Gahan to become a scalpel that can cut Jina-chan's body open and find the tumor. Forget it, Tamono Kakazi said. I might as well be a surgeon. What does it mean to be a scalpel? Okay, sure, I'll be the scalpel. However, Gahan nodded in agreement. No one knew what he was thinking. Thank you, Mr. Gahan. Hina Sasuke's let out a long sigh of relief and said, ever since Hina-chan gained consciousness, no virus has been able to enter her body without her consent. Therefore, these tumor viruses must have been placed in her body by someone when she was creating it. You put them in when you created her? Hearing Jina-chan's words, Gahan instantly thought of a lot of things. Although Sword Maiden Online was launched 200 years ago, the concept of the game started nearly 300 years ago. As for the establishment of Tamono Kakazi's terminal, it could be traced back to 700 years ago. It was said that at that time, the first generation of intelligent core program and the central computer room had already been established. Wait, 700 years ago? Gahan was stunned. Wasn't 700 years ago when Jitian Jindi was active? It seemed that the idea of this ultimate intelligent terminal was proposed by Jitian Jindi. Chapter 332. At that moment, Gohan roughly understood what happened to Tamono Kakazi. Combined with the appearance of I Ching's soul fragment, everything had a reasonable explanation. When Jitian designed the ultimate artificial intelligence, Tamono Kakazi, he probably did not have good intentions. He wanted to insert some of his own personal activities into the game. Therefore, under the guidance of the heaven-shrouding Sword Emperor, a string of tumor viruses that contained his soul fragments were sent into Tamhina Kakazi's body, which had just taken embryonic form and was equivalent to a baby in the womb. Then, without Tamhina Kakazi's knowledge, he made Tamhina Kakazi hide the soul fragments and various hidden programs into the code dump of the game's main program when he was designing the game. Since it was called the garbage heap, it must be a disorderly and annoying pile of garbage. Unless there was a necessary reason, Tamono Kakazi would never touch the garbage heap. Just like how a normal person would not be interested in going through all kinds of smelly, dirty, and rotten things to check for bombs in the garbage heap. As a result, these programs were silently hidden for 200 years. It was only when Gahan appeared that the whole thing was triggered. In other words, the mastermind behind the whole thing was undoubtedly Jitian Jindi. As she did not know what happened to Gahan in the dungeon, Tamono Kakazi did not know that it was one of her creators, Jitian Jindi, Who did this? At that moment, she was still in the dark. Of course, Gahan did not intend to tell Tamono Kakaze about this. A secret was only a secret when only one person knew about it. He would let her guess slowly. Jina-chan, what do you want me to do? How can I be your scalpel and help you find the one that you want to cut open? Gahan asked. Jina-chan, if you want to remove this lesion, you need to remove all the tumors on the surface before you could think about the next step. Xiang Fengji combed her beautiful long white hair together and hugged it in her bosom, looking extremely cute. Hasn't the tumor been removed? Shina-chan, didn't you say that the hidden dungeon of Heroes Begin with Insignificance has been completely formatted? Gahan said calmly. No, there is more than one tumor. There are many more hidden in other garbage dumps that we can't see. Before they are triggered, even I don't know which one is the real tumor virus. Tamono Kakaze meant that in addition to this hidden dungeon, there should be other hidden dungeons in her game that she didn't know about. Before these hidden dungeons were triggered, even Tamono Kakaze herself could not locate them. Then what can I do? Gahan glanced at Jinai. Even you, the owner, can't find it. How can I, the guest, find the hidden tumor? Of course, Mr. Guhan can't find it, but Mr. Gahan can trigger them. Tamono Kakaze waved her hand, and the whole room turned into a dim yellow desert. On both sides of Gahan, there were two forces attacking each other. On one side, there were more than 100 German female commandos in military uniforms, and on the other side, there were two slightly thin humans. This is the scene of me entering the dungeon. Gahan squinted his eyes. He recognized this scene at a glance. This was the scene of him and I Ching destroying a group of German female commandos who attacked the Taowu tribe's camp in the previous dungeon. Yes, this is the last part of the dungeon process that I can restore. Tamono Kakaze nodded her little head hard. Then, the scene changed, and the two sides started fighting. Gahan was not far from the commandos, and he began to release sword aura to cut off the legs of Yuan Ko. Mr. Gahan, the sword aura you use should be the sword of the abyss from the 9 swords of mysterious heaven, right? Tamono Kakaze licked her lips and said Gohan's unique sword technique. It's a very powerful sword technique. Before this, there were only a few battle recordings in Jinai's information. That's right, this is the 9 swords of mysterious heaven. Gahan admitted calmly. He was not surprised that his unique sword technique had been seen through by Tamono Kakaze. Gahan was not surprised. He already knew that he could not hide this from Tamono Kakaze, since his 9 swords of mysterious heaven could be perfectly simulated by the game program. It was clear that Tamono Kakaze had already grasped the information of the 9 swords of mysterious heaven. However, the battle recording that Tamono Kakaze mentioned made Gahan feel a little excited. Since it was a battle recording of the 9 swords of mysterious heaven, it must be a battle recording of the previous user of the 9 swords of mysterious heaven. Could this user be his ancestor? Was there a real image of his ancestor in this recording? When he thought of this, Gahan could not help but feel excited. Unfortunately, Tamono Kakaze did not seem to want to say much about the 9 swords of mysterious heaven. She tapped with her hand, and the scene of the battle was immediately paused. Then, the frozen scene shifted. Finally, Gahan, who was holding the heavenly sword, was moved to the side of the coffee table. The Gahan in the recording stood next to the real Gahan. It looked very comical. Mr. Gahan, you are currently holding the Yu King sword in your hand, right? Tamono Kakaze asked. Yes. Gahan pursed his lips. How could she not know whether it was the heavenly sword or not? Was there need to ask the obvious? Good. Tamono Sasuke's nodded. She purposely lowered her Lolita-like voice. I've compared the process of clearing the Heroes Begin with Insignificance Instance Dungeon with tens of millions of players. The other actions that Mr. Guhan has done have more or less been done by other players. There are only 2 things that other players have not done. Jina-chan, are you saying that my 9 swords of mysterious heaven and the heavenly sword are things that other players have never done? Gahan immediately understood why Tamono Kakaze had specifically pointed out these 2 things. Since Gohan was the only one who triggered the hidden dungeon, then only Gohan was able to trigger it. Tomono Kakaze had used her privileges as the master system to compare all the clearing recordings of the hero's rises from insignificance dungeon over the past 100 years. She wanted to find the special conditions that Gohan had triggered the hidden quest. Now, Tomono Kakaze had finally found these two conditions. That's right. The 9 swords of mysterious heaven appeared for the first time in this game. Apart from you, no one else has used it before. As for the heavenly sword, although there have been 4 players who have successfully synchronized with the heavenly sword, they have only synchronized after completing almost all of the ancient sword rank dungeons. They have no interest in exploring this ancient sword rank dungeon again. Hence, these 2 conditions are unique to you, Mr. Gohan. No one else has ever fulfilled them before. I understand now. You suspect that the other hidden programs are triggered by these conditions, so you want me to trigger the hidden dungeons, right? Gohan immediately understood Tomono Kakaze's thoughts. Damn it, why is Mr. Gohan so smart? Tomono Kakaze nodded expectantly. Shina-chan believes that only by unlocking the secrets of the hidden dungeons will she be able to find a way to completely eradicate the virus in her body. Therefore, Shina-chan hopes that Mr. Military Governor can enter every dungeon and trigger the hidden dungeons. Then, she can inform Shina-chan as soon as possible so that she can monitor the entire hidden dungeon. Hearing that Shina-chan wanted to monitor the entire hidden dungeon, Gohan's expression turned sour. If the entire dungeon was under Tomono Kakaze's surveillance, then wouldn't he have no secrets to speak of? Mr. Gohan, are you afraid that Shina-chan will find out about Mr. Gohan's secret? Tomono Kakaze asked innocently. But Mr. Gohan also knows Shina-chan's secret. Shina-chan is now tied to Mr. Gohan. From the information of the Gu family in Mount Huagua, Mr. Gohan will experience many interesting things in the future. Who knows, Shina-chan might be able to help Mr. Gohan. After all, Shina-chan has the ability to control the entire human world. For example, right now, there are 2 cute mice discussing how to deal with Mr. Gohan. Shina-chan said with narrowed eyes. Someone is discussing how to deal with me? Do you mean in real life or in the game? Gohan frowned. If someone was discussing how to deal with him in the game, then there was nothing he could say. He had a lot of enemies in the game. Not to mention 2 mice. Even 200 mice would be a matter of course. However, it would be a different story if someone was discussing how to deal with him in real life. He didn't seem to have any enemies in real life, except for the people suspected to be from the Leonian family. However, the Leonian family system was independent. It was impossible for Tomono Kakaze's tentacles to extend into the Leonian family's territory. In fact, all the Jindy families in the human world could not be controlled by the ultimate intelligence system, Tomono Kakaze. They did not comply with the demands of the Divinity Council or the Sword Committee. Who the hell would allow their family to be monitored by the government? Besides, the government itself was formed by the tentacles of the Jindy families. All right, I'll inform Shina-chan as soon as I trigger the hidden dungeon. In the end, Gohan decided to make the deal with Tomono Kakaze. That's great. Shina-chan has added Mr. Gohan as a friend. Mr. Gohan, please confirm it. System notification. Tomono Kakaze has requested to be your friend in the game. Do you accept? The system notification came just in time. It turned out that even the highest level of intelligence system, Tomono Kakaze, needed his permission to add him as a friend. Gohan confirmed it. From then on, Gohan's personal terminal had an additional friend named Tomono Kakaze. Right, Mr. Gohan. Tomono thought that Mr. Gohan would not like the other dungeon rewards, so she changed the reward to this one. I hope that Lord Gohan will not be unhappy. Tomono Kakaze pulled out a purple bottle of Jin Essence Oral Solution from the collar of her dress. It was a sword essence oral solution that could increase a player's strength by 200 quarks. For Gohan, such a reward was more useful than anything else. Thank you. Gohan nodded and drank the bottle of oral solution that carried the scent of a loli in one gulp. Chapter 333. When Gohan left Tomono Kakaze's room, An Angora rabbit jumped out of a closet and landed on Tamono Kakazi's table. "You've worked hard, Tibby." Tamono Kakazi picked Tibby up and placed him on her head. "Tibby, our dreams can finally come true. We'll be free soon." In a dirty room full of spots left behind by an unknown liquid, two little mice were discussing how to deal with Gahan. "Andy Gwugwa, please help Xiaoya." Not too long ago, Xiaoya had always despised the filth of this room, as well as the thick stench. However, this time, Xiaoya had stayed in this room for almost an hour. She even hugged Auntie Gwugwa's body without a care in the world as she sincerely begged. "Seriously, if your mother finds out that I helped you, she'll definitely kill me." Gwugwa blew out a ring of smoke. "Our teacher once said this about your mother and I. She said that I have a sharp tongue, and your mother has a sharp heart." Gwugwa's words had a deep meaning to them. Unfortunately, Xiaoya, the little girl, could not understand the meaning behind these words. Her mind was filled with the matter of being an admiral. She was thinking about the incomparably dazzling life of a noble lady. Seeing Xiaoya's unconcerned expression, Gwugwa knew that this little girl didn't listen to her words at all. In fact, this little girl was very similar to her when she was young. Both of them wanted to live a decent life, but in the end, they ended up in this situation. "Little girl, get out. I won't help you with this matter. If I help you, your mother will kill me." Gwugwa waved her hand and was about to chase Xiaoya out of her room. "Auntie Gwugwa, are you afraid that your mother will kill you? Aren't you afraid that your mother will kill herself?" Xiaoya's eyes flashed. This little girl didn't seem to be completely stupid. "What do you mean by that?" Gwugwa frowned. This little girl was even more difficult to deal with than she had imagined. "Aunt Gwugwa, if you chase Xiaoya out, Xiaoya will jump out of the window. If I can't do this, Xiaoya would rather die here." Xiaoya began to use her own life to threaten Gwugwa. This kind of woman was the most annoying. She didn't have any other abilities, but she would use her own life to threaten others. Furthermore, she didn't even have the ability to threaten strangers. She could only threaten family members who cared about her. Who care about strangers? If they died, then they died. As long as I didn't kill them, it had nothing to do with me. However, it just so happened that this method was incomparably effective against family members. Even a woman like Gwugwa would feel a headache when she saw this situation. She could tell from the look in Xiaoya's eyes that this little girl was not lying. In order to achieve her goal, she had gone crazy. However, she could not watch when Meiyun's daughter die. She was not that heartless. Have you really made up your mind? There isn't a single good man. If one day he loses interest in you, then you will instantly lose everything you desire. In this room of mine, there are no less than 20 women like this. They were all chased out like trash by those sword bearers after they got tired of playing with them. They can only live here like walking corpses. Have you really made up your mind? The women that Gwugwa spoke of were all women who were once doted on by the sword bearers. As they aged, or for some other reason, they lost the favor of the sword bearers and were chased out of their homes. In the eyes of those sword bearers, these women were no different from trash. Some of the more despicable sword bearers would even use the last bit of wealth on these women before they were chased out. Before they met Gwugwa, they were already at their wits' end and were in the state of walking corpses. Gwugwa had once saved a woman like this. She had taken off all her clothes and laid down in a deep alley. She had her arms and legs stretched out, allowing the men who came and went to spray their bodily fluids on her body. She did not say a word, nor did she move at all. She was completely like an abandoned, inflatable doll. If it wasn't for the fact that the men who came and went were afraid of losing such a free toy, they would have bought some food and forcefully stuffed it into her mouth. She would probably have died long ago. Gwugwa saw that she was pitiful, so she brought her back to her home. She lived like a living corpse for half a year. In the end, she silently died on the bed, which made Gwugwa sigh endlessly. There were more than 10 women like this in Gwugwa's house. They were either living corpses, waiting to die every day, or living unrestrained lives, shuttling back and forth between men every day, trampling on their bodies. In short, not a single one of them lived like a human being. Gwugwa was speaking from the bottom of her heart. She really did not want Xiaoya to walk the path of those women. Perhaps she could rely on her young body to live a wealthy life for a while, but in the end, it would inevitably be all for naught. Anti-Guogua, your view is too one-sided and too extreme. Xiaoyu suddenly revealed a very serious expression and tried her best to persuade Guo. There are actually not many bad male sword bearers like you described. Out of 100 women, only 1 in 10 will end up like that. Most women, even if they're not loved by men, men will still care about old relationships and give them a comfortable life. Occasionally, they will even give them a little rain. This kind of ending is normal. The example you gave is a little too extreme. Xiaoya's words were logical and logical. Guo suddenly found herself speechless. That was because what Guo said was indeed the truth. Women who were as unlucky as the one she had taken and were only special cases. It was just like when you were studying. Your mother often taught you that children from poor families didn't have lights, books, notebooks, or pens, but they relied on their own willpower to study hard and become the top scholar in so-and-so city or so-and-so province. Therefore, it was easier for children to study in a tough environment. I should have thrown you into a poor place and let you suffer a little so that you would know the benefits of studying. A tough environment was the place to cultivate talents. I gave you such good living conditions, but I made you not want to study anymore. Therefore, they came to the conclusion that it was easier for children who loved to study to be born in a tough environment. These words sounded very reasonable, but in reality, they were completely wrong. How could a child who lived in a tough environment learn better than a child who came from a superior family? This was a completely wrong thing to deceive people. The simplest reason was to compare the academic performance of a child who came from a tough family with a child who came from a superior family and a child who came from a poor family. Then you would know the truth. In fact, children who lived in a tough environment were more likely to drop out of school. They didn't want to study at all. Instead, they wanted to enter society early. It could be said that most children from poor families didn't want to study at all after finishing high school or junior high school. They just wanted to leave the countryside early and start a new life. Of course, there were a small number of smart children who knew that knowledge could change their fate. They would study hard hundreds of times harder than the children from a superior family and get into a famous university. But such examples were too rare, so rare that they could be considered news. A city child from a superior family who got into Peking University, or a child from a poor family who got into Peking University. Which one was more newsworthy? Even if you used your but to think, you would know. Naturally, the media liked to report such inspirational stories. Wasn't it a matter of course for a student who ate brain platinum every day and used Nutrition Express to get into a famous university? As a result, the media would report all the news about children from poor families who got into a tough family through their own efforts and diligence. When people saw such news, they would naturally think that it was easier to produce talents from poor families. This was all T. It was easier to get into a famous university if one came from a superior family. For example, if you saw news today about an old man who fell to the ground and a child who helped the old man up, but the old man extorted a large sum of medical expenses, you would sigh that all the bad people in this world have become old, and the conscience of the old people have become very bad. But in reality, most of the old people would not do such immoral things. But in this case, there was no newsworthy news at all. Only the news of the old man being extorted after he helped him up could be considered newsworthy. It was estimated that out of 1,000 cases of extortion, 100 of them would be reported by the enthusiastic media. Think about it. In a big country like China, there were only 100 or so such news reports every year. Among the hundreds of millions of old people, there were a few thousand scum. Wasn't this a very normal thing? What was so strange about this? It would be strange if these old people didn't exist. There is also the matter of tourists visiting the Great Wall. You only saw a few thousand people visiting the Great Wall, but you didn't see the tens of millions of people leaving nothing on the Great Wall. It was like a black dot on a piece of white paper. People's attention was always on the black dot, but they didn't see how pure and flawless the whole piece of white paper was. All right, back to the main topic. While Guogua was stunned by Xiaoyu said something earth-shattering that made Guogua feel inferior. Those women who are hated by men just don't work hard enough. They don't know how to create something that attracts men's desire. Something like tearing open a man's thigh is something that any woman can do, so men will naturally feel disgusted. Xiaoya wants to develop something that other women don't have. Only then can she capture men's hearts forever. What do you want to develop? Guogua was stunned, and she asked weakly. Auntie Guogua, what do you think about uniform temptation? Xiaoya said excitedly. Chapter 334. Guhan exited the game space in a fatigued state, and Heavenly Reliance followed suit. Ever since meeting I Ching, I Tian had been in a state of silence. She locked herself in her room and was quiet, which was rare. Guhan was also exhausted. It was already around 5 o'clock in the morning. There were less than 8 hours left before the command challenge that he had agreed with Yao Wang. In these 8 hours, Guhan could only sleep for 3 hours at most. In the remaining 5 hours, Guhan still needed to carefully study the details of the entire challenge. Although Guhan had a rough plan in his mind, there were many details that had to be considered clearly. Otherwise, it was very likely that he would fall short of success. As a result, as soon as Guhan closed his eyes, a small body crawled to Guhan's side and burrowed into Guhan's arms. She mumbled in a daze, "Guhan, you're back? Qing Bin almost fell asleep waiting for you. Has this cute little thing been waiting for me to sleep?" Guhan felt touched and hurriedly hugged Qing Bin into his arms. As for I Ching's warning about Qing Pin's crisis to Guhan, it instantly disappeared from his mind. How could Guhan bear to give away his beloved Qing Pin? He wanted to keep Qing Pin by his side forever. With this thought in mind, Guhan slowly fell into a dream box until he was awakened by an itch on his nose. "Brother, you're awake." Guhan opened his eyes and saw Gu Yun sitting on him. She was holding a piece of white cotton cloth in her hand and rubbing it against Guhan's nose. No wonder Guhan felt his nostrils itch so badly. But why, in the center of this white cloth, was there a patch of blood? Seeing this, Guhan's forehead was filled with black lines. How is this some kind of white cotton cloth? It was clearly something used by women, and it was King used and stained with blood. When Maiden was probably the only one in the family who knew how to use such a thing. This Gu Yun, where did she find such a thing? Wen Meiyun, take Gu Yun to take a bath, Guhan said loudly to Wen Meiyun, who was in the living room. Wen Meiyun hurriedly ran in. When she saw the thing in Gu Yun's hand, her face suddenly turned red. She hurriedly wanted to snatch the thing back and quickly throw it into the trash basket. Wen Meiyun made up her mind. She would immediately empty the trash basket, even if it was only filled with less than 1/10 of the trash. Meiyun, bring Gu Yun to take a bath. She's not clean after touching that kind of thing. Guhan suddenly remembered that his nose seemed to have been harassed by that thing for a long time. He immediately got up from the bed, went to the closet to find a new set of clothes, and planned to take a shower in the small bathroom in his bedroom. "Right, what time is it now?" Guhan asked casually. He found that the sky outside was very bright, and it did not look like it was 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. "It's 11:30 in the morning now, master. Do you need something to eat?" Wen Meiyun thought that Guhan was hungry. Guhan's face stiffened, and the movements of his hands became faster. He actually slept until 11:30, and there was less than an hour and a half before the battle with Yao Wang began. He did not need to prepare for the details. He did not even know how much strength Yao Wang's subordinates had. He had to immediately enter the game and understand the most basic combat strength. Guhan ran into the bathtub as if he was flying, and it took him less than 5 minutes to finish his bath. Then, he rushed out of the bathroom, connected his personal terminal, and entered the game. After 23 hours of commanding the battle, the moment Guhan came out of the game, he was so tired that he collapsed. He had only slept for a few hours before commanding the battle. In the end, he had commanded the battle with high intensity for more than 20 hours, and even participated in the frontline battle for 2 hours. His entire body was emptied of sword essence, and only then did he seize the final opportunity to turn the tables and seize the everlasting autumn water sex formation. Throughout the entire process, Guhan could be said to have given his all squeezing out every last bit of his blood and sweat. Therefore, the moment his head touched the pillow, Gahan immediately fell asleep. He did not waste even a second. Once Gahan fell asleep, he did not care about anything else. However, the forum was in an uproar. Over 1 million people watched the thrilling battle through the live stream. That was especially so when the Yaoguang sword sect, which had less than 2,000 people left, faced the 9 provinces sword sect's main force that had suddenly appeared. Everyone thought that the Yaoguang sword sect would definitely lose. In their opinion, Gahan had used that miraculous move to trap and kill all 5,000 sword-bearers from the Great Waves of Azure Wave sect in one fell swoop. He was already the strongest person to dig traps in history. He was a godlike commander. Even if he were to lose to Long Yu's ultimate killer move, it would still be a glorious defeat. After all, the difference in strength between the Yaoguang sword sect and the Great Waves of Azure Wave sect's reinforcements was 4 times that of the everlasting Autumn Water and Great Waves sect's reinforcements. Even if Minister Jijin were to command the battle back then, he would not be able to match up to the military governor's command. There was no shame in losing. Even if the Yaoguang sword sect would lose some of the sect's resources, it would not matter. Many of the spectators had decided to join the Yaoguang sword sect and help the Yaoguang sword sect tide through this difficult time. Then, under the military governor's command, they would once again challenge the everlasting Autumn Water. That was the battle that men should participate in. But now I completely understand how good Yaoguang's foresight is. Without the military governor's command, I reckon that the Yaoguang sword sect would have been in chaos by now. Let's go back to the military governor. A person with such great intellect is already a very scary thing, but this person has an even stronger combat ability. I thought of a proposition in the history field. They hypothesized that if there was a person with the intellect of Zhuge Liang and the martial arts of Lu Bu, what kind of person would that be? Now, I think I can find the answer to this question. The military governor is such a person. Finally, I still have to admire one more person, and that is the commander of Eternal Autumn Water, Long Yu. Although he had failed, no one should underestimate this character. His details might not be as good as his master, young Master Bai Yun, but his view of the big picture and cunning had already surpassed his master's. In time, he would definitely become a terrifying character, and he would be able to dominate an era with more than enough time. It's a pity that he was born in the same era as the military governor, which doomed him to a tragic end. There were many similar comments on the internet. All in all, this battle had made the military governor a god in many people's hearts. Before this battle, there might have been 2 evenly matched parties arguing about whether the military governor could lead this era. After this battle, all of the arguments had already vanished like smoke in thin air. This era was destined to belong to the admiral. Chapter 335. Gahan slept for a total of 48 hours, which was equivalent to 2 days and 2 nights. When he woke up, he felt that he was full of energy, and the sword essence in his body seemed to be rejoicing. Now is the time to reopen my meridians. Gahan's eyes lit up, and he went straight to the training room to reopen his meridians. As expected, this time, Gahan's reopening of his meridians was like divine help. Wherever his thoughts went, all the meridians opened up instantly, and Gahan almost effortlessly reopened most of his meridians. When only the meridians needed for the last 2 sword techniques of the 9 swords of mysterious heaven were left, Gahan suddenly felt an intense dizziness. Oh no, could this be the legendary Qi deviation? Gahan recalled some historical records from before the Great Calamity. It was said that when practicing ancient martial arts, it was extremely easy to enter a state of cultivation deviation if one wasn't careful. Moreover, the faster one cultivated, the easier it was to enter a state of cultivation deviation. Gahan hurriedly withdrew all the sword essence into his purple mansion, and then he heard a rumbling sound from his stomach. So it's because I'm hungry. Gahan's face flushed red. What Qi deviation? It was because his stomach was too hungry that it made him feel dizzy. After leaving the heroes begin with insignificance instance dungeon, he had rested for 8 hours and spent more than 20 hours commanding the challenge. He had slept for another 48 hours, and now he had practiced for more than 10 hours. In total, he had slept for more than 90 hours, which meant that he had not eaten for more than 4 days. It was normal for him to feel dizzy from hunger. Wait, it's already been more than 90 hours. It's been more than 4 days? Gahan was shocked. He suddenly remembered that he had promised Jitian Jindi's soul fragment in the game that he would set off for Changyang Mountain in 5 days to find what Jitian Jindi left for him. Doesn't that mean that there's less than a day left? No, I can't delay any longer. This is important to unravel Jitian Jindi's secret. I have to go to Changyang Mountain. Gohan immediately left the training room and ordered Wen Meiyun loudly. Meiyun, prepare 10 sets of clothes and daily necessities for me immediately. Also, prepare a month's worth of food for me. It doesn't need to be too complicated, just some rice balls, salted vegetables, and steaks. The faster, the better. Wait, give me something to eat first. I'm about to faint from hunger. Gohan rattled on, but when Meiyun didn't respond, Gohan was puzzled. He walked into the living room and saw Wen Meiyun sitting on a chair with her head lowered, as if she was crying. Gohan quickly walked to Wen Meiyun's side and held her chin. He tilted it up and saw that Wen Meiyun's face was covered in sparkling tears. She had already cried into a tearful mess. Master. Wen Meiyun was shocked when she saw Gohan's face. She thought that Gohan would stay in the training room for a while longer, so she lost her usual vigilance and didn't serve her master at all times. Wen Meiyun was so flustered that she wanted to kneel down and apologize. Master, Meiyun was wrong. Meiyun was distracted and didn't pay attention. Shut up, I don't want to hear this nonsense. Gohan scolded. What happened to you? Did someone bully you? No, I really didn't. Wen Meiyun shook her head vigorously. It's just that some sand got into Meiyun's eyes. Meiyun was blinded by the sand. That's right, Meiyun was blinded by the sand. You're also in your 30s. Why don't you even know how to lie? Gohan snorted coldly. I want to hear the truth. Then tell me the truth, or get out of here. I won't leave a maid in my house who hides anything from the master. Yes, master. Wen Meiyun hesitated for a moment, then gritted her teeth and said, Something happened to Meiyun's daughter, Xiaoya. Just now, the school called to say that there were 2 students who fought with Xiaoya. In the end, Xiaoya fell from the window on the 3rd floor. Both of her legs were broken. Meiyun was worried about Xiaoya's safety, so she secretly cried. So that's how it is. Gohan nodded. All of Wen Meiyun's thoughts and goals to live were on her daughter, Xiaoya. Her daughter had 2 broken legs, so it was normal for her to be sad. Don't cry. Didn't I give you a sum of money? Just treat it as a loan. Go and send Xiaoya to the hospital's medical pod. She'll recover after a night's rest. I guarantee that her legs will be better than before they were broken. For an illness like a broken leg, the hospital's medical pod would charge 100,000 to 200,000. Gohan guessed that Wen Meiyun did not have enough money on her, so he took the initiative to speak. As his exclusive maid, loyalty was the most important thing. A small favor could buy Wen Meiyun's loyalty to him. This was a very good deal. Hearing Gohan's words, Wen Meiyun immediately shook her head. Master, Wen Meiyun doesn't lack money. If I could use the medical pod to cure Xiaoya's illness, Meiyun wouldn't be hiding here crying. It's just that Xiaoya was born of pure blood, so she can't enter the medical pod. Your daughter is actually a pure blood. Gohan was shocked. The so-called pure blood was a modern human's atavistic bloodline, returning to the human bloodline before the apocalypse. Pure blood. It sounded very impressive. Unfortunately, it was of no use at all. In human history, there were at least 1,000 purebloods like this. After serious research, scientists came to the conclusion that purebloods would never be able to become sword-bearers. Their genes lacked a genetic sequence, known as the sword-wielding gene. Humans without this genetic sequence would never be able to synchronize with the sword lady. It was the same logic as a man being able to change into a woman, but it was impossible for him to get pregnant. After a series of bold hypotheses and deductions, the scientists concluded that at the time of the Great Apocalypse, A mysterious force had added sword-wielding genes into the human genome, allowing talented humans to become sword-wielders and fight against the Yuan Ho. Then, the children of humans with the sword-wielding gene would also inherit the sword-wielding gene. This way, the entire human race would have the sword-wielding gene, but it wasn't absolute. Occasionally, there would be people like Xiaoya, reverting to their ancestry and becoming human children without the sword-wielding gene. However, this wasn't a big deal. After all, people like Xiaoya were rare. They could just treat it as raising a panda. Oh, you're asking why this gene is called the sword-wielding gene? The reason was simple. Only with this gene could one become a sword wielder. As the name suggested, it was called the sword-wielding gene. It was simple, easy to remember, and perfect. However, there was another disadvantage without the sword-wielding gene. Some of the advanced technology of humans couldn't be used on them. For example, the medical pod. Its medical principles were directly used on the sword-wielding gene. Without the sword-wielding gene, the medical pod wouldn't have any effect on Xiaoya. Hence, Xiaoya could only use traditional medical methods to treat her short legs. At this moment, both of Xiaoya's legs were probably wrapped in plaster casts, with wooden planks and bandages wrapped around them. Then, she was hung up. It was also because of this that when Maiden couldn't help but cry. To a mother, not being able to be by her daughter's side during her most painful time was a huge torture. More importantly, because there were too few pure bloods, even the bandage treatment method had to be figured out by the hospital's doctors on the spot. The hospital didn't have any ordinary patient beds to accommodate Xiaoya. In addition, Xiaoya's fracture didn't require any special care. She only needed to rest and change her dressing. Hence, the doctors sent Xiaoya home to recuperate. However, when Maiden knew very well how terrible the living conditions at Guoguo's place were. In such an environment, once the bacteria invaded Xiaoya's body, wouldn't it be like adding another illness before she had recovered? Hence, when Maiden felt sad and anxious, she wanted to fly to her daughter's side immediately, but she couldn't let go of Gahan's matter. Go and take care of your daughter. Gahan could see the conflict in Wen Meiyun's heart. He decisively said to Wen Meiyun, I'm going to go on a long journey soon. You can go and take care of your daughter. Thank you, Master. But Master, what about Miss Guyun? She's so young, and you can't keep her by your side. Miss Guyun is so lively. If you don't have Meiyun to look after her, I'm afraid. When Meiyun said it very tactfully, what she meant was that Guyun was too jumpy, running into the fish tank every day to catch fish to eat. Maybe there was something wrong with her, and she would jump out of the window to catch fish to eat. In short, Guyun needed someone to look after her. This, Gahan pondered for a moment. When Meiyun's words made sense, Guyun really needed someone to take care of her. If he wasn't in such a rush, Gahan could go to the maid service center to get his second exclusive maid. However, Gahan was in a hurry to go to Changyang Mountain. He didn't have time to go to the maid service center to pick a maid. Even if he picked one, he wouldn't be able to trust the new maid's character without spending a lot of time with her. What if something happened to her taking care of Guyun alone? It seemed that when Meiyun really couldn't leave Gahan's house for a while. How about this? Why don't you bring your daughter in? Gahan hesitated. He had seen Xiaoya before. She was a quiet and shy girl who would protect her mother. Such a girl wouldn't do anything to his family, right? Gahan didn't know that after a short period of training, this girl's character had completely changed into a scheming bitch and a red tea bitch. What? You're asking why she's not a green tea bitch? What a joke. Xiaoya had decided to be faithful to one man. If she dared to make a living sword bearer a cuckold, she, Xiaoya, wouldn't be able to live. Chapter 336. When Meiyun wanted to reject Gu Han's arrangement at first, but when she thought of her daughter's pitiful state, she couldn't bring herself to reject. She wasn't the kind of woman who pretended to refuse when she clearly wanted something in her heart. Therefore, after hesitating for a while, when Meiyun nodded in agreement, she secretly made up her mind that she must serve Gu Han wholeheartedly and be a good maid to Gu Han. All right, courier, help me get some food, and then prepare a simple month's worth of food. I'm going on a long trip, so I'll leave the matters at home to you. Gu Han patted Wen Meiyun's shoulder and gestured for Maiden to prepare according to his orders. Maiden nodded. When she was about to leave, she suddenly thought of something. Then, she took out a cardboard box from the sofa and put it in front of Gahan. Master, when you were sleeping, a courier came to deliver this to you. Because you were sleeping, I didn't dare to disturb you, so I signed for it on my own. Please punish me, Master. Maiden said carefully. Of course, Gahan wouldn't punish Maiden for this kind of thing, but Gahan was very curious about who sent this courier. Gahan didn't have many friends. In reality, Song Hama was his only friend. Maybe Song Yifei was half a friend, but Song Yifei didn't know his home address, so it was impossible for him to deliver any courier. Could it be that this courier was sent by Song Hama? This was the first time that this guy had sent him a courier. However, when Gahan saw the mailing address of this courier, his face changed instantly. This courier was actually sent from a small address in Yanjing City. It crossed 2 whole base cities, a distance of thousands of kilometers, and there were countless couriers sent by Yuan Ko along the way. Such a courier would probably cost tens of thousands of yuan. Of course, money was just a small matter. Now, Gahan didn't care about tens of thousands of yuan. What Gahan cared about was the address in Yanjing City. Gahan didn't know anyone in Yanjing City, so who on earth would send such a courier from Yanjing City to him? Taking a closer look at the mailing address, it was not a famous street and an inconspicuous house number. In short, it was a very inconspicuous address. A smart person would know that this address was fake, and the real sender couldn't possibly live there. Although Gahan was full of doubts, Gahan knew that this kind of thing couldn't be solved by guessing, so he had to open the courier and see what was inside. Gahan wasn't worried that there was any lethal weapon in the courier, because the Sword Committee always had a rule that was criticized by many sword holders. That was, all the courier, packages, and other things that were sent to the sword holders would be checked by the Sword Committee every day to make sure that there was no danger inside before they were sent to the sword holders. There was a sword holder who bought a bottle of Dawei online, and his information was leaked by the staff of the Sword Committee, which made him lose face in the sword circle. Even so, most of the sword holders tacitly agreed that the Sword Committee would check their courier first. After all, this was for their safety. In the beginning, when there was no such rule, many sword bearers were blown to death after receiving a delivery bomb. There were even 2 sword bearers at the Immortal Sword tier who died in such a humiliating manner. When a sword holder didn't have a sword lady in their hand, or if they didn't release any of their sword ladies, there would be jokes of Immortal Sword tier sword holders being blown to death by ordinary bombs. Later, it was proven that this was not a deliberate murder by the elders. Instead, these Immortal Sword tier sword wielders were too arrogant and had harmed too many people. They were killed in such a ridiculous way by their enraged enemies. Because they didn't release the sword ladies, they didn't share the physical attributes of the sword ladies, and they didn't have the sword ladies' personal shields. Without these things, the sword holders were no different from ordinary people. Since then, the Sword Council had to inspect the security of the parcels sent to the sword bearers. Of course, if you had something you didn't want the Sword Council to see, you had to be more diligent. You could do it face-to-face, or you could do it in a way that didn't require express delivery. Only a fool would send something private through express delivery. Therefore, Gahan could open the courier without worry. He didn't have to worry about a bomb jumping out of it. What could be inside? Gahan quickly opened the first layer of the package. He found that it was filled with plastic foam to keep things from being shaken. There was a small box hidden inside the plastic foam. It looked like a jewelry box. This looks like a box used to keep a ring. Gahan thought to himself, it can't be a ring. Who would be so bored as to give themselves a ring? As a result, Gahan was slapped in the face as soon as he opened the box. Inside the ring box was indeed a ring, and it was a jade-like ring with a dark green color. Wait, why does this ring look so familiar? Gahan held the ring in his hand and looked inside and outside with a solemn expression. He finally confirmed one thing. This ring was exactly the same as the ring that I Ching's soul fragment had transformed into in the game. Or rather, it was that ring. Even with Gahan's temperament, he wanted to throw it away when he saw it. He couldn't calm down at all. Isn't this something in the game? How could it appear in the real world? Suddenly, Gohan remembered I Ching's words when they parted. Husband, Chinger is about to disappear. After Ching disappears, I hope that you will give me the item that Ching left behind in the future. I don't want to miss even the slightest memory with you. When Gohan heard this sentence, he didn't care much. Who would care about a line from an NPC in a dungeon? So, at that time, Gohan didn't think too much about it. But now that he thought about it, Gohan shuddered. I Ching said that after she disappears, he could give the item that she left behind, which was this ring, to the real Zhijindi in the other world. Naturally, the item in the game could not be given to the real Zhijindi. To give it to the real Zhijindi, it had to be something that actually existed in the real world. In other words, I Ching had long known about the ring on Gohan's hand. In reality, it would be delivered to Gohan's hand by express delivery. All of this was arranged by I Ching. Could it be that she had planned all of this 700 years ago? This shouldn't be something that Zhijindi left behind. Someone must have been secretly carrying out all of this. That person must have been monitoring him in the dark. Once he completed the hero's rise from insignificance dungeon, he would immediately send the ring to him. But after thinking about it carefully, something didn't seem right. According to what I Ching's soul fragment said, this was a crystallization of her memories with Gohan. Logically speaking, such a crystallization could not have existed before Gohan completed the hero's rise from insignificance dungeon. It must have been created in the real world after the dungeon was completed. If that was the case, then the ring in the game must have been transformed into a ring that existed in the real world through some special means. After Zhijindi's subordinates obtained the ring, they immediately sent it to him. This was the most logical explanation. Gohan kept thinking about the possibilities of this ring. There were many ideas, but there were a few things that he was certain of. The heaven-shrouding Sword Emperor must have left behind a hidden force in this world, and this force was very likely to be monitoring him. For a moment, Gohan felt like there were countless pairs of eyes around him. The most suspicious ones were when Maiden and his sister Guyun, who were busy in the kitchen. For some reason, Gohan was always on guard against Guyun. Guyun might be his sister, but there was no guarantee that she wouldn't do something like spy on her brother. Guyun's state was too strange. She had the body of a young girl, but she had a mature personality. It was very suspicious. Aside from Guyun and Maiden, Song Hama was also very suspicious. His childhood neighbor, his current neighbor, and Gohan suddenly stopped his suspicions. If he continued to suspect, the whole world might be watching him. Now is not the time to think about these things. The most important thing now was to send the courier to Chanyang Mountain. Zhijindi had left something for him there. Maybe he could find the force that Zhijindi had left behind in this world. No matter what their goal was, as long as they made a move, he would be able to find clues. As Gohan was thinking about this, Maiden had already cooked a big bowl of noodles. There was even a large piece of pork on top. Because Gohan wanted to be fast, the noodles were very hot. Maiden probably cooked them at the highest heat possible. Even though the noodles were extremely hot, Gohan still ate the bowl of noodles at an incredible speed. He wolfed it down and finished it all in less than 10 seconds. Gohan's esophagus could withstand the heat because he was using the Heavenly Sword's body. If it was an ordinary person, their stomach would probably have blisters. Qingpin, Etian, get ready. We're going on a long journey. After Gohan finished the noodles, he urged Qingpin and Etian to get ready. In the end, when Maiden, who was sweating profusely, jumped out and said that Qingpin and Guyun had left early in the morning under Etian's lead. She couldn't stop the three of them at all. Hearing this, Gohan started to have a headache. However, Gohan's headache didn't last for long. A message interrupted his pain. You have a message from your friend, Master, Cloud Sky Sword Immortal, Lulei. Master is looking for me. Gohan was stunned. Why was Lulei looking for him at this time? Chapter 337. On the other end of the communication line, Lulei's voice was very urgent. It was almost as if he was ordering Gohan to go to his office immediately. In order to be in a hurry, Liu Lei gave Gohan special permission to use the quantum teleportation array in the Sword Garret to reach the Sword Garret directly. I don't know if everyone still remembers, but there is a quantum teleportation room in Gohan's house. This was a standard feature of every swordbearer's house. Through the quantum teleportation room, they could be teleported to various key locations in Yuzhong City. At the first instance of a major attack, they could arrange their troops neatly. It was a pity that this entire system was only completed about 10 years ago. If the swordbearers could reach the location of the fallout shelter where Gohan was in time, perhaps Gohan's parents would not have died. Normally, although these quantum teleportation arrays could be opened, they were basically unusable. This was because the teleportation arrays at the other end of the quantum teleportation array were public teleportation arrays controlled by the Sword Committee. Without the approval of the Sword Committee, the intelligence system in charge of managing the quantum teleportation arrays, namely Tamono Kakashi, would not open the teleportation function at the other end. However, at this time, Gohan had received special permission from Liu Lei. As one of the two highest-ranking people in Yuzhong City, Liu Lei's order was naturally negotiable. Using the teleportation array to travel was not an extravagant thing. It was just a few 100,000 RMB worth of energy. Therefore, when Gohan arrived at the teleportation room that he had used on the first day of moving, the teleportation array lit up very brilliantly. This meant that there was already a teleportation array on the other end that was connected to Gohan's teleportation array. Hello, are you Sir Gohan? The teleportation is about to begin. Are you ready? Standing on the teleportation array, Gohan could hear a pleasant female voice speaking to him. However, this voice did not come from Gohan's personal communication terminal. Instead, it was directly transmitted to his ears through the air, as if someone was speaking into his ear. Gohan knew about the information related to quantum teleportation arrays. This was a normal phenomenon of matter directly jumping through quantum channels. I'm ready, Gohan replied. All right, Lord Gohan. During the warp process, there will be nausea, headaches, confusion of consciousness, confusion of memory, and other symptoms. Please do not worry. These are all normal symptoms. If your hand and position have shifted, please inform us immediately. This is an accident, and the probability of it happening is 0. 2%, the female voice explained seriously. The so-called quantum warp, to put it simply, was to disassemble a person into a quantum state, teleport them to another location, and then reassemble the quantum state. The entire process was very fast, and the human senses were almost unable to detect the changes in the state of disassembly and reassembly. Normally, it would just make one feel a little nauseous. Of course, if one's luck was bad enough, it was not something that could not be explained by science. P.S. Regarding the explanation of quantum teleportation, the author is purely making things up. There is no scientific reasoning behind it at all. Fellow physics gurus, please take a break. There is no need to point out the author's fallacy. Oh right, regarding the problem of the melting point of diamonds and bones, it is the author's fault. I will also explain to everyone here that the melting point of diamonds and bones are about the same. There is a bug in the previous plot. Everyone, please do not put diamonds in a fire, it will catch fire. Thinking about the 0.2% chance of him turning into a monster, Gohan felt a little stifled. He wanted to leave the teleportation array, but unfortunately, the warp had already begun. Gohan could only look outside worriedly. Then his head sank, and he arrived in a completely new environment. As expected, after the teleportation, Gohan began to feel nauseous, as if he was suffering from severe motion sickness. However, Gohan had a strong character. Even if he felt dizzy, he still looked fine from the outside, which was praiseworthy. It was worth noting that beneath Gohan's feet was a teleportation array that was larger than the one in his room. It was said that this teleportation array could teleport about 10 sword-bearers at the same time. Beside the teleportation array stood a woman in a white coat. It seemed that she was the owner of the voice that had just spoken to Gohan. Very good. The 156th teleportation experiment of the Sword Garret Quantum Teleportation Array is completed. The success rate is 98%. The teleportation array is performing well. The woman in the white coat recorded the experiment while muttering to herself. This made Gahan shudder. The success rate was 98%, which meant that there was still 2% that was not successful. There was still 2% of his body that had not been teleported over. Here, drink a cup of this. It will help you wake up. The woman in the white coat threw a bottle of drink to Gahan. Gahan took it and looked at it. Oh my God, it was actually Mount Lao white flower snake grass water. This kind of thing could indeed help the sword bearers recover their mental strength. But the actual taste, forget it. It was more important to leave this vicious state. Gahan directly opened the bottle and drank the entire bottle of Mount Lao white flower snake grass water without blinking. Then he burped and instantly became sober. Not bad, you are a man. You are the fastest man I have ever seen to drink this thing. The man in the white coat praised Gahan. All right, the experiment is over. I have to go. By the way, the 2% that you left behind should have become a pile of fat. Quantum teleportation is the easiest to lose fat. Congratulations, you have lost at least half a kilogram. TSK, the quantum teleportation array could actually teleport fats out. This was a good way to make a fortune. Think about it. As long as you teleport, all kinds of fats would disappear without a trace. This was very popular among female users. All right, let's not talk any more nonsense. The man in the white coat disappeared from the teleportation room. Gahan also followed him out of the teleportation room. He was now inside the sword pavilion. Beside him was the sword pavilion's elevator. Gahan took the elevator directly to the top floor and gently knocked on the door of Lu Lei's office. Is it Gahan? Come in. Lu Lei's voice came from the room. Gahan quickly pushed the door and entered. He saw Lu Lei sitting behind the desk with a serious expression. Opposite him was a chair. Obviously, it was prepared for Gahan. Gahan did not stand on ceremony and directly sat opposite Lu Lei. He smiled and said, Master, why did you call me over in such a hurry? Good thing. Although Lu Lei said it was a good thing, his expression was very ugly. It was obvious that he was telling Gahan that this was a bad thing. Let's not talk about this first. Let me ask you. You were the one who commanded the battle between the Yaoguang sword sect and the eternal Autumn Water Sword sect, right? Lu Lei asked. Gahan nodded blankly. What does Lu Lei mean? Since he knows that I am Gahan, he should naturally know that I was the commander of that battle. What evidence do you have to prove this? Lu Lei asked very seriously. What's wrong with this Lu Lei? He's not usually this stupid. Although Gahan did not know what Lu Lei was planning, the other party was his own master. So, Gahan was destined to follow Lu Lei's wishes. At any time, the relationship between master and disciple was second only to the relationship between father and son. It could be said that it was more reliable than the relationship between husband and wife. Is this considered evidence? Gahan sent a receipt notification to Lu Lei. This was the notification of the reward for his King Arthur's Betrayal dungeon guide post. After more than a week, the popularity of this post had cooled down. Before the battle between the Yaoguang sword sect, the daily income had dropped to less than 200,000 renminbi. It was estimated that in another month, it would drop to less than 10,000 renminbi. However, after the battle with the Yaoguang sword sect, the situation was completely reversed. In just 48 hours of sleep, Gahan had received more than 60 million renminbi in rewards. You guys have to take note that these are rewards, not subscriptions. After all, one subscription is 5 renminbi, and after a subscription, you can't subscribe anymore. So, these rewards that were coming in were all rewards for Gahan. Every player was subdued by Gahan's exquisite commands and schemes, as well as the final battle where he single-handedly fought against 100 elites. In the end, the entire everlasting Autumn Water did not dare to take a step forward. They could only watch as Gahan ascended to the core of their formation like a subject. The entire everlasting Autumn Water Sword sect was convinced by Gahan's slaughter. This included their sect leader, Yu Qinyu. This quiet sect leader posted an authenticated post with her real name on the forum, which was a rare sight. There was only one sentence. Defeated by the hands of Mr. Military Governor, this little girl is convinced. From now on, everlasting autumn water is Mister's man. This was the everlasting autumn water fulfilling the bet it had made with Gahan. This meant that the everlasting autumn water had publicly acknowledged the wager, and from now on, it would become a spear in Gahan's hands. In the end, because of this short announcement, the everlasting autumn water, which should have been dispirited due to their failed defense and falling out of the 10 greatsword sects, miraculously managed to retain 90% of their original core strength. There was even a continuous stream of new people applying to join the everlasting autumn water. They only had one reason, and that was that they hoped to be able to work under the military governor. If they could participate in a world-shaking battle commanded by the military governor in their lifetime, they would have no regrets in their lives. The hundreds of people who had fought with Gahan to the end had all become popular. Every day, they would be invited to all sorts of talk shows, and there were also many confessions from male gods and goddesses. Well, it was as if they had been admitted to Tsinghua University or Peking University. They were incredibly happy. From this, it could be seen how exciting that battle had been. All the spectators were so excited that they wanted to give their hard-earned New Year's money to the military governor, but they didn't have the military governor's friends. So, in the end, they could only give their money to the dungeon walkthrough post that the military governor had posted. Yao Guang was also very tactful and unilaterally canceled the agreement to split the profits from the walkthrough post. In other words, the Yao Guang sword sect had voluntarily given up 50% of the income from the walkthrough post. After all, they had given their money to the military governor. If the Yao Guang sword sect wanted to take a share of this money, it would be a little too shameless. They had already obtained a spot in the 10 great sword sects, and that was enough. Yao Guang had taken another big step towards his goal. Just now, the message that Gahan had sent to Lu Lei was one of the reward notifications from the system. At first, Gahan thought that Lu Lei would just read it silently. He never expected that Lu Lei would actually project the message on the wall and then read it word by word. Dear Swordsman Gahan, someone in the game has read the charging post King Arthur's Betrayal Dungeon Walkthrough, posted by Military Governor 12580 in the forum. The person is very excited and has given you 50,000 renminbi. After deducting 20% of the personal income tax, 40,000 renminbi has been automatically transferred to your personal account. Moreover, Lu Lei was not satisfied after reading it once. When he was about to read it a second time, Gahan finally couldn't take it anymore. Master, who exactly are you acting for? Of course it's for an old B** starred. Lu Lei sneered. Then a hole appeared in the void, and a spirited old man walked out. This person was none other than Yuzhong City's other immortal-level swordsman, Sword Sage Zhu Wudao. Chapter 338. Little guy, how did you know that I was hiding in the room? Zhu Wudao, who had been exposed by Gahan, was very unhappy. He had hidden his body in the void. Only an immortal sword rank sword-bearer of the same level as him, who could sense the void, will be able to detect the abnormality of the void. Apart from that, no sword-bearer below the immortal sword rank could detect him. Now that he had been seen through by a junior at the treasure sword rank, Zhu Wudao felt particularly embarrassed. Lord Baiju, you may not know this, but this junior's master is usually calm and dignified. He has a magnanimous demeanor and is a kind elder who is steady and reserved. This junior respects his master from the bottom of his heart. He would never do something as frivolous as what just happened. Therefore, this junior deduced that this was definitely a joke that my master was playing with his friends. Gahan first praised Lu Lei, then explained that it was not that Zhu Wudao's skills were not good enough, but that Lu Lei's behavior was too strange. In short, both of them were secretly flattering each other. Sure enough, after Gahan said this, Lu Lei and Zhu Wudao's expressions became much better. Lu Lei, in particular, pretended to knock on Gahan's head and scold him for being sly. Then, he threw a large glass bottle to Gahan, which was filled with fine powder. Gahan took a look and found that the large bottle was filled with high-quality sword mark dust, which was used to make deep sword marks. This is what I just earned. Come, come, come. Anyone who sees it has a share. I will give half to you, Lu Lei said with a smile, then winked at Zhu Wudao. Zhu Wudao's face twitched a little as he scolded. You old fart, you earned 2 bottles of sword-marked dust from me because of your disciple. You should give all of it to your disciple. How dare you take half of it? TSK. This is where you are wrong. I was the one who made the bet with you. Naturally, I am qualified to take half of it. Lu Lei patted Guhan's shoulder. Good disciple, this old fart did not believe that you were the military governor and insisted on making a bet with me. What do you think? Should I take half of this sword-marked dust? It turned out that the 2 of them had just made a bet with Guhan. Lu Lei said that his disciple was the famous military governor. Naturally, Zhu Wudao did not believe him and said that Lu Lei was trying to flatter himself. Therefore, the 2 of them each took out a large bottle of sword-marked dust as a bet. They agreed that when Guhan arrived, Lu Lei would ask Guhan to take out the evidence that he was the military governor without directly pointing it out. That was how the scene just now came to be. However, Zhu Wudao's question seemed to be filled with malice. Regardless of whether Guhan answered yes or no, it was a slightly incongruous answer. As the old saying goes, a disciple has half a son. The disciple is the master's son, and the master is the disciple's father. Father and son are one, so why should they be separated? Everything should be decided by the father. Guhan's answer was very witty, especially when he compared himself and Lu Lei as father and son. This made Lu Lei's face turn into a chrysanthemum flower. Anyway, Lu Lei's strength and age were obvious. Not to mention being Guhan's father, he would not be at a disadvantage even if he were to be Guhan's grandfather. Good disciple, good son, I'll give you a big bag of sword scar crystals later. I guarantee that you'll be able to improve your ancient sword and the sword goddess to level 8. Ha ha! As expected, Lu Lei promised Guhan a lot of benefits when he was in a good mood. Well, old thing, let's get down to business. Zhu Wudao was sitting on the sofa. He was the chairman of the sword committee of Yuzhong City and the rightful number 1 person in Yuzhong City. He had a high status and lived like a prince. Over time, he naturally developed a majestic aura of a superior. Guhan felt that he was suppressed just by looking at him. In contrast, Lu Lei was more like a ruffian. Although there were times when his aura was monstrous, most of the time, he looked like an old urchin. It's time to get down to business. Lu Lei nodded. You've seen my disciple's commanding battle a few days ago. You've also seen his strength. Although that was in the game, in real life, it wouldn't be much weaker than in the game. My disciple is also an outstanding swordmaster. With such strength, do you have any objections to sending my disciple for this operation? Okay, since your disciple is the military governor, I really have no objections. Zhu Wudao nodded. However, if your disciple is alone, I'm afraid he won't be able to handle it. Therefore, I will send someone to go with your disciple. The 2 of them can take care of each other along the way. You also want to send someone? Who are you going to send? From his tone, it seemed that Lu Lei did not object to Zhu Wudao sending someone. He was curious about who Zhu Wudao would send. Wait, what happened? Where did they want to send Guhan? Guhan was someone who was about to go to Chanyang Mountain, and he only had less than 10 hours left. Master, you may not know, but I have an appointment with my friend. I will go out of the city today to complete the task of killing Yuan Ko. My friend is already waiting for me at my place. I'm afraid I can't. Before Guhan could finish, Lu Lei interrupted him. All right, what you said is just a small matter. Later on, Master will send you to do something big. What task? As long as you complete this task, you will receive benefits that you will never be able to enjoy in your entire life. Hurry up and contact your friend. Tell him not to wait for you. Go and play by yourself. Tell him that I forced you to do this. Hurry up. Lu Lei's words were very domineering, so Guhan did not know how to deal with it. Of course, he did not have any friend to refuse, but this was what I Ching had repeatedly told him. Moreover, he had promised I Ching that he would definitely go to Chanyang Mountain. Guhan pinched the ring on his finger and made a decision. Master, I'm afraid I can't listen to your orders anymore. I must complete my task first. Otherwise, I will never be at ease for the rest of my life. Gohan gritted his teeth. You stinking brat. Lulei was fuming with anger at Gohan's words. This stinking brat actually dared to refuse him. On the other side, Zhu Wudao laughed out loud. He was always the happiest when he saw his old rival and old buddy being humiliated. Hey, old man, your good disciple actually refused you. Very good. He has a backbone. I now completely believe that he is the military governor. What a good child. He has wisdom. I like it. Lulei glared at Zhu Wudao before turning his head to look at Gohan. What task are you going to complete, kid? You have such a firm attitude. Let me tell you, the task that I gave you this time is a good one. You will definitely regret it if you miss this opportunity. Yes, Master, you have good intentions. I didn't know how to appreciate your kindness. Please forgive me, Master. Gohan's attitude was very humble, and he kept apologizing, which made it difficult for Lulei to vent his anger. However, the refusal in these words became even more resolute. Therefore, Lulei could only ask unwillingly, Where are you going? What task are you going to complete? I'm going to Chanyang Mountain to look for the relics left behind by the sages. Gohan thought for less than a second and decided to tell the location honestly. This was because Lulei could easily sense Gohan's location with the aura he left on him. Moreover, he had the personal terminal's positioning system. It was impossible to hide his whereabouts. However, Gohan did not say that he was going to look for the things left behind by Zhetian Jindi. He only said that he was going to explore some relics. There were a lot of relics on Earth now, so this was a reason that would not be suspected. Gohan thought that Lulei would scold him a little when he heard him say this, but unexpectedly, Lulei's expression was very surprised. Not only Lulei, but even Zhu Wudao, who was next to him, was also surprised. Hey, good disciple, say it again. Where are you going? Lulei asked Gohan again. Chanyang Mountain. Gohan answered honestly. I say, brat, are you in contact with the Liunian family? You actually received news from Chanyang Mountain as well. This time, it was Gohan's turn to be shocked. Could it be that Lulei wanted him to go to Chanyang Mountain as well? Also, what did this have to do with the Liunian family? Master, I only learned about the relics of the ancestors by chance, so I wanted to explore it. Apart from that, I don't know anything else. Gohan explained casually. All right, there's nothing to explain. Master knows that you and Miss Liunian Ling are good friends. Very good friends of the opposite sex. I understand now. You must know that your good friend is in danger, so you rejected Master and rushed to save your friend. Lulei let out a long sigh. I didn't expect that Liunian Ling would be trapped in Chanyang Mountain, and we don't even know if she's alive or dead. The Liunian family has no choice but to come to us for help. Good disciple, if anything happens to that lass, don't take it too hard. What in the world was going on? What kind of danger is Liunian Ling in? Gohan suddenly recalled that Liunian Ling had gone to Chanyang Mountain. There were all sorts of messy messages, causing Gohan to be completely confused. He had no idea what was going on. Since he couldn't figure it out, he decided not to speak and listen to what Lulei had to say. I'll take your silence as a yes. Lulei chuckled. Who would have thought that Liunian Ling would be chased by a great earth bear into shrouding Jindi's great formation? They can only ask us for help now. The Liunian family has gone for wool and come home shorn this time. Good disciple, when you go to save your little girlfriend later, don't forget to bring back the Emperor's sword for me. Yuzhong City will be taking that Emperor's sword. What's going on? Why is Chanyang Mountain related to the Emperor's sword? Gohan screamed in his mind. Chapter 339. After that, Gohan tried to find out more or less what had happened. At the very least, it was the version that the Liunian family had spread. A few weeks ago, how Tian Jindi had suddenly sensed that there were signs of an Emperor's sword lady appearing in the direction of Gansu. Moreover, this Emperor's sword lady should have never appeared in the human world before. It was a brand new sword lady appearing for the first time. However, this was an incredible matter. The humans had not had a new Emperor's sword lady appearing for more than 500 years. Coincidentally, the humans were about to enter the difficult sword era. Every new Emperor Sword Lady had the possibility of creating an Emperor Sword Wielder. As such, Hao Tianjin had ordered his subordinates to go to Gansu to investigate. In the end, he had confirmed that the Emperor Sword should be near Chanyang Mountain. Hao Tianjin was Jindi, and he was a person who was about to die. He did not covet the Emperor Sword at all. His only thought was to keep this new Emperor Sword in the Yanjing base city. As mentioned before, every base city had a heart to collect all the sword ladies. As such, Hao Tianjin had rushed to tell this news to the two most powerful families in Yanjing, the Hongru family and the Liuyan family. This was a huge matter. After some discussion, the leaders of the two families decided to send their respective successors, Su Tianyuan and Liu Ling, to search for the Emperor's sword. This way, they could kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Firstly, it could train the abilities of the two successors, and at the same time, improve their relationship. Secondly, when the Emperor's sword lady appeared, it would emit a bright sword light. The wielder who was illuminated by the sword light could greatly improve their affinity with the sword essence, allowing them to accumulate sword essence faster. At the same time, it would also increase their affinity with the sword lady. Thirdly, bringing back an Emperor sword mistress was a great achievement. At the very least, with this achievement, the two families would be able to gain a wave of favorability points among the humans, and they would also be able to secure their positions as successors. Fourthly, according to the first batch of Hao Tianjin subordinates, not only was the place deserted, but there were also very few traces of Yuankou. There were no traces of nether level or above Yuankou within a few hundred miles. In other words, that place was not a fatal danger to Liu Ling and Su Tianyuan. As such, the leaders of the two families slapped their heads, and Su Tianyuan went to Chanyang Mountain with Liu Ling. In the beginning, everything went smoothly. The two of them used advanced scientific equipment to successfully find the suspected location of the Emperor's sword. In the end, when they were excavating the mountain, a meteor-level earth bear came out. This was a U-level Yuankou, which was second only to Yuankou. Fleeting Time Lin and Su Tianyuan led a powerful party, and both of them were knowledgeable in their own right. Even so, the earthen bear was able to kill many of the sword bearers. Most of the sword bearers died at the hands of the earthen bear. Su Tianyuan had no choice but to activate a precious void talisman and hide his body in the void. Only then did he survive. Liu Ling could also use void talismans. She had 4 or 5 of these talismans that were worth hundreds of millions each. However, for some reason, Liu Ling didn't use them. She was chased by the earth bear. In the end, she found a formation that sky-covering Jindi had set up. Then, Liu Ling hid in the formation and didn't send any messages. Su Tianyuan recounted what happened to Liu Ling. Although he hid in the void, he could still move and watch the battle outside. Su Tianyuan watched the entire process of Liu Ling's escape from the void. Then, he quickly left Chanyang Mountain and found a way to contact Yanjing City to report the news. The Liu family panicked. They couldn't let their only heir die here. For 1,000 years, the Liu family had only one heir. Liu Ling didn't have any siblings. She didn't even have a child. If Liu Ling died, the Liu family might not have any more descendants. The Liu family had no choice but to inform the other base cities and ask them to send their best sword bearers into the formation to save Liu Ling. Even if they couldn't save her alive, they had to save her body. As for why they wanted the best sword bearers and not the advanced sword bearers of their families, it was because Su Tianyuan found an LED display near the formation. Su Tianyuan tried to connect the LED with electricity. Then, he saw a message left by sky covering Jindi. It was a simple message. This is a trial ground for the younger generation. All sword bearers above sword bearers will have their sword marks broken if they enter. What it meant was that this was a trial ground for the younger generation. If any sword bearers above sword bearers entered, their sword marks would definitely be broken. It didn't matter whether they believed it or not. In any case, no sword bearers above sword bearers dared to enter. Dying at the hands of Yuan Ko was a worthy death, but dying at the hands of Sky covering Jindy was nothing. Since Sky covering Jindy had clearly said that this was a trial ground for the younger generation, those sword-bearers above sword-bearers would be too embarrassed to barge in. As a result, the Lunyan clan went with the flow and announced this news to all the headquarters cities, telling them to quickly send their best sword-bearers to the trial and save their heirs at the same time. The Lunyan clan used this reason to justify asking them to send their best sword-bearers. If even the heirs of the Lunyan clan could not pass the trial, ordinary sword-bearers would definitely be trapped. So, they had to send their best sword-bearers in. Although Lu Lei and Zhu Wudao were very dissatisfied with the Lunyan clan's arrogant attitude, they had to admit that the heirs of each generation of the Lunyan clan were the cream of the crop. If even she could not come out, perhaps the trial ground was really not suitable for ordinary sword-bearers. As a result, Lu Lei and Zhu Wudao began to discuss which sword-bearers Yuzhong City should send to Chanyang Mountain. Naturally, Lu Lei strongly recommended Gahan. He said that Guhan's strength was definitely second in Yuzhong City, and he was not far from first. Zhu Wudao naturally did not believe this. How could a little guy who had only been a sword-bearer for a few days have such strength? Helpless, Lu Lei could only say that Guhan was the military governor. He even played the edited video of Guhan commanding Yao Wang to fight Hung Tian Xiushui to Zhu Wudao. It could not be helped. Ever since Zhu Wudao became a sword-bearer, he had not logged into the game even once. In his words, no matter how much sword essence he accumulated in the game, it was not as useful as fighting in real life. Unfortunately, his words, which sounded like they had the potential to become famous, were forcefully slapped in the face by Gu Jinyang. Gu Jinyang was the best example of a rising star in the game. He was known as the strongest sword-bearer in the later Jiangshan Jindy era. Zhu Wudao did not even have the strength to refute the slap. Helpless against Gu Jinyang, Zhu Wudao could only vent his anger on the game. He swore that he would never step into the game again. Naturally, he did not know about the legend of the military governor, nor had he seen any of the military governor's battles. Lu Lei could only show Zhu Wudao the edited video afterwards. Although he still disdained the game, after watching the video, Zhu Wudao admitted that the military governor could be a top sword-bearer, be it in the game or in real life. However, Zhu Wudao doubted the identity of the military governor. It was impossible for Lu Lei's apprentice to be the military governor, which was why he had tested him at the beginning. Lu Lei and Zhu Wudao agreed to Gahan's name, and it appeared on the list of people going to Chanyang Mountain. However, there were two other names that appeared together with Gahan's name. When Gahan roughly figured out the ins and outs of the matter, someone knocked on the door of Lu Lei's office again. "Come in," Lu Lei responded, and a slender figure walked in. "Greetings, master." "Greetings, Senior Yun Xiao. Is this my teammate? Why does the voice sound so familiar?" Gahan turned around when he heard the voice. The slender figure turned out to be Song Yifei. Song Yifei was shocked when she saw Gahan turn around. She did not expect Gahan to be here. She thought that her master had called her over alone. "Come, Yifei." "Greetings, Senior Lu Lei." Zhu Wudao gestured for Song Yifei to bow to Lu Lei. It turned out that the apprentice Zhu Wudao was talking about was Song Yifei. What a coincidence. Lu Lei squinted for a while and smiled. "I remember now. Aren't you the sword wielder who synchronized the wisdom sword? Oh, you seem to be good friends with my apprentice too." "Yes, Senior. If it weren't for Senior Gahan's sword mistress, Yi Qian, I wouldn't have found Lady Wisdom's sword and become an ancient sword wielder. It was all thanks to Senior Gahan's help." Yifei, Song Yifei said sincerely. Indeed, without Gahan, Song Yifei would still be treating patients in the hospital. "Thank you, Senior Gahan." Then, Song Yifei also bowed to Guhan, which made Lu Lei burst into laughter and Zhu Wudao feel annoyed. They had both taken in two apprentices. Somehow, his apprentice owed Lu Lei's apprentice such a big favor. She might even be suppressed by Gahan for the rest of her life. "Hey, old man, your apprentice is only an ancient sword wielder. We're going to use a treasured sword wielder this time. Your apprentice isn't qualified. Lu Lei mocked. Ignorant. Zhu Wudao said proudly. Just yesterday, Song Yifei received the recognition of the Mingyuan sword and became a treasured sword wielder. My apprentice's cultivation speed is faster than yours by a month. What? It's a Mingyuan sword. Lu Lei and Guhan's expressions froze at the same time. Wasn't the Mingyuan sword the sword mistress of the Mingyuan Jindi, who abandoned her identity as a sword wielder to become Yuanko? It was obvious that the Mingyuan Jindi's title came from the Mingyuan sword. Chapter 340. The Ming Iris Sword Emperor was a legendary sword wielder. She was one of the few female sword wielders among the sword emperors. Not long ago, she was so dazzling among the humans. She had 12,000 innate sword essences and was ranked third in history, second only to the Sword Ancestor and the Green Snake Sword Immortal. She became an ancient sword wielder on the day she turned 18. 3 days later, she synchronized with a treasure sword wielder. 1 week later, she obtained a famous sword. At 19, she obtained a spirit sword, and at 28, she obtained a celestial sword. Before she reached 40, she became the highest human Jindi. She was also ranked third in human history when she became an emperor sword wielder. She was second only to Kenzu's fleeting years and Gu Jin Jindi. Mingyuan Jindi's life was extremely smooth. On her way to becoming a Jindi, she didn't encounter any obstacles. This directly led to Mingyuan Jindi's arrogant personality. She arrogantly declared to humans that she would kill all the Flood and Desolate level Yuan Ko in one go. She wanted to completely drive Yuan Ko out of the earth. Speaking of which, this declaration was exactly the same as Guhan's. They both said that they wanted to kill every single Yuaning. In the end, this arrogant Jindi received a wake-up call when she turned 40. Her first target was the Western Temple of the Yuan Ko faction. At first, she smoothly destroyed many of the Western Temple strongholds and even killed 2 universe-level Yuan Ko. However, when she was destroying the next stronghold, she was ambushed by the Western Temple. The Western Temple's desolate-level Yuan Ko Yahweh brought 8 universe-level Yuan Ko archangels and desolate-level giant beasts from the Western Demon Beast camp to surround Mingyuan Jindi. No one knew what the outcome of that battle was. Aside from the Ming Iris Sword Empress, all the other sword bearers who followed her had died in that battle. The Ming Iris Sword Empress was lucky enough to escape and hid in her territory. She claimed that she was recuperating from her injuries. In the end, no one heard of the Ming Iris Sword Empress appearing in the world for 30 years. Just when the human world was about to forget about Mingyuan Jindi, Mingyuan suddenly rushed out of her place of seclusion and used the broadcasting device of the Sword Committee to announce to the world that she didn't want to be a human anymore. From now on, she was Yuan Ko. Then, she left Yuzhong City and entered the endless wilderness to become a real Yuan Ko. The world never really understood why Mingyuan Jindi wanted to become a Yuan Ko. It was just that the other Jindi said that Mingyuan was afraid of death. So, she chose to become a Yuan Ko to escape death. As for the reason, perhaps only Mingyuan Jindi herself knew. By the way, Mingyuan Jindi was still alive and living a very good life. After Mingyuan Jindi announced that she had betrayed the human race, her family was shocked to find that other than Mingyuan Jindi's Emperor Sword Ladies, the rest of the Sword Ladies, from Ancient Sword rank to Fairy Sword rank, were all left. Because of this, humans thought that Mingyuan Jindi still had some conscience and did not take revenge on Mingyuan Jindi's descendants. They only strictly restricted the living conditions of Mingyuan Jindi's descendants so that they could only be ordinary people for the rest of their lives. The sword ladies left behind by Mingyuan Jindi were naturally kept in the sword pavilion. The ancient sword rank, famed sword rank, spiritual sword rank, and fairy sword rank were synchronized with the other sword bearers. Only the treasure sword rank Mingyuan Jindi, the treasure sword rank sword lady, which was the source of Mingyuan Jindi's emperor title, did not acknowledge any other sword bearers. Just when everyone thought that the Mingyuan sword would not be able to find another sword-bearer, Song Yifei suddenly synchronized with it. This was the first master of the Mingyuan sword after Mingyuan Jiandi. When Lu Lei and Gahan heard this news, their imaginations began to run wild. Lu Lei was looking at the bigger picture. He was wondering if the Netheriris Sword Emperor was behind the Netheriris Sword's sudden acknowledgement of him. On the other hand, Gahan was more realistic. Song Yifei was very useful now. I didn't expect Yifei to synchronize with the Mingyuan sword. A few days ago, Yifei came to the sword pavilion to synchronize with the treasure sword lady, and he had a strong connection with the Mingyuan sword. I didn't expect him to succeed after trying it out, Zhu Wudao said with a smile. I think Yifei is a talent. Her innate sword essence is also very high. I only accepted her as my disciple. Gahan, since you and Yifei have been friends for a long time, you should support and help each other. Yuzhong City might have to rely on you guys to survive the difficult sword era. Yifei, please take care of me, senior brother Gahan. Song Yifei said to Gahan politely. Her expression was dignified, but there was a sense of distance. She behaved like a virtuous lady. She was almost like a different person from the Song Yifei that Gahan knew. Where's Lu Run? He's already 5 minutes late. Why isn't he here yet? Old thing, did you tell him to come to my office? At this time, it had been more than half an hour since Guhan arrived at Lu Lei's office, and Song Yifei had also arrived 10 minutes ago. It seemed that there was still one person who hadn't arrived yet. He dared to be late in front of the Sword Immortal. This sword wielder, named Lu Ren, seemed to be quite a character. Stop nagging. I'm here. The door was pushed open. A young man dressed like a punk from thousands of years ago walked in. His hair was like the halo of a sun in a child's pen, and there were black smoke rings around his eyes. His face was pale, and his lips were purposely painted green, which made people want to vomit. Could this person be the Lu Ren that Lu Lei had mentioned? He didn't match his name at all. Brat, didn't I tell you to put your hair back? Don't you understand what I said? Seeing Lu Ren's behavior, Zhu Wudao was so angry that his face turned pale. There is a strong feeling of resentment towards Lu Ren for failing to meet his expectations. All right, old man Zhu, Lu Ren's dressing is also his personality. Didn't I hear that the main idea of quality education before the Great Calamity was not to stifle children's individuality? Lu Ren is just dressed a little weirdly, but the rest of him is still very good. Lu Lei tried to persuade him. However, no matter how one listened, it sounded like a strong sense of mockery. Why did you ask me to come here? If there's nothing else, I'm going back to sleep. Lu Ren said coldly, without a trace of emotion on his face. Humph. Zhu Wudao's humph sounded cold, but in fact, it was full of helplessness. All right, Lu Ren, let me explain to you. Lu Lei took the initiative to explain the matter of Chanyang Mountain again. Lu Ren, Gahan, Yifei, this is an excellent opportunity for you to improve in the future. You must grasp this opportunity well. The primary objective of this mission is to rescue Miss Liu Yinling. The secondary objective is to find a new Emperor's sword and then bathe in the sword radiance when the Emperor's sword is born. Lastly, if possible, snatch the Emperor's sword from the hands of Yanjing City and bring it back to Yuzhong City. If you can bring the Emperor's sword back, I, Lu Lei, will give you 100,000. No, 300,000 hero coins. This is the amount of hero coins that a famed sword master can only earn after 10 years of hard work. As long as you bring the Emperor's sword back, all these coins will be yours. Sai, this Lu Lei said that the last mission was to bring back the Emperor's sword, and the first was to rescue Liu Yinling. However, the first two missions didn't even mention any rewards. Only the last mission directly drew a huge pie with 300,000 hero coins. Even a ghost could tell what Lu Lei was really thinking. Yes, yes. Gohan and Song Yifei nodded one after another. In the face of an immortal swordmaster's mission, they couldn't and didn't want to reject it. I'm not going. However, Lu Ren was different. He answered dryly, turned around, and was about to leave. Stop right there. Zhu Wudao roared, and the entire office shook. It also successfully made Lu Rin stop in his tracks. Is there anything else? Lu Rin said coldly. Kurakin, let me tell you. This is a mission from the Yuzhong City Sword Committee. If you dare to reject it, I will directly cut off your sword mark. Everything you have is given by me, and I can also take it back for you. This guy's full name was actually Ku Rakin. Combined with the way he spoke to Zhu Wudao and Zhu Wudao's helplessness toward him, it was obvious that this Ku Rakin should be Zhu Wudao's son. No, Zhu Wudao was almost 75 years old. How could he have such a young son? Ku Rakin should be his grandson. Just now, Zhu Wudao said those words while gritting his teeth. Indeed, Yuzhong City had a law that if one didn't listen to the command of the higher-ups of Yuzhong City and acted recklessly, the Sword Committee had the right to directly cut off the sword marks of these sword-bearers. However, this law was aimed at some very bad behavior or violations of military orders during times of war. It was a bit too much to say that one would be cut off just because they didn't want to accept a mission. If they were brought to the court of the Discipline Commission for discipline inspection, they wouldn't be punished so severely. Refusing to accept a mission that didn't affect the survival of Yuzhong City or directly cause the death of other sword-bearers would be a heavy punishment if they were locked up for a day or two. Of course, as the chairman of the Sword Committee, it was naturally a small matter for Zhu Wudao to punish a treasure sword-level sword-bearer. No one would say anything. Moreover, this treasure sword-level sword-bearer was Zhu Wudao's own grandson. It was natural for a grandfather to beat his grandson. Okay, I'll go. Ku Rakin didn't insist. After saying that, he left Lu Lei's office. Ku Rakin's unreasonable attitude completely darkened a certain person's face. This arrogant comrade didn't think that if he didn't have a sword-immortal grandfather, Lu Lei would definitely kick him out if he treated Lu Lei with such an attitude. Chapter 341. Gohan and Song Yifei agreed to meet up with Lu Lei and Zhu Wudao in the parking lot of the core zone in 3 hours. They left Lu Lei's office together. As soon as they left the room, Song Yifei's tensed body relaxed, and she returned to how Gohan was familiar with her. Meow, I'm so tired. I had to face 2 sword immortals at the same time. My legs are shaking, Song Yifei said as she patted her chest. Actually, Song Yifei's chest wasn't small. He roughly estimated that it was at least 4 cup sizes bigger than Xingpin's. Oh, I forgot to mention that Xingpin's cup size might be in the negative. Gohan subconsciously looked at Song Yifei's legs. Unfortunately, Song Yifei's legs were tightly covered by a green dress, so Gohan couldn't see if Song Yifei's legs were shaking or not. Gohan, I didn't expect you to be Sword Immortal Cloudski's disciple. Why didn't you tell me before? Song Yifei glared at Gohan angrily. You didn't tell me that you're Sword Immortal Baiju's disciple either, did you? Gohan retorted as he rolled his eyes at Song Yifei. You heard from my master that I only became his disciple the day before yesterday. Where have you been for the past 2 days? I haven't seen you at all. Song Yifei argued. Gohan couldn't be bothered to answer her. They weren't so close to each other that she needed to call him every day to report his whereabouts. Wasn't it normal for him to not see her for 2 days? By the way, why did you touch the Netherworld Iris Sword? You're quite bold to actually be willing to waste an opportunity of synchronization. Gohan was a little surprised, due to the fact that no one had ever successfully synchronized the Demonic Iris Sword for so many years, and the fact that the Demonic Iris Sword wasn't ranked high among the treasured swords. Only around the 100th rank, it was automatically ignored by the majority of sword wielders. No one would waste a precious opportunity on a sword maiden that was destined to fail. Only sword wielders who had been stuck at the treasured sword rank for most of their lives and had tested all of the sword maidens at least once would go for the Demonic Iris Sword. There were very few sword wielders like Song Yifei who went for the Demonic Iris Sword on their first try. Didn't I tell you? That's because I have a strong affinity with the Infernal Iris Sword, replied Song Yifei dryly. You don't have any confidence in your answer. Gohan turned his head and stared into Song Yifei's eyes. As a friend, I have to tell you that if it's really because of the affinity between you and the Demonic Iris Sword, then it's very likely that you're in the middle of a huge scheme. It's too strange for you to be able to synchronize with the demonic iris sword. I highly suspect that there's something fishy going on here. Before the demonic iris sword met the demonic iris sword, it was a sword maiden that was easy to synchronize with. It had already had 5 or 6 masters. However, after the demonic iris sword was in Jindy's hands, it hasn't shown any signs of movement for several hundred years. There's something fishy going on here. I strongly suspect that the demonic iris sword and Jindy are still maintaining a certain level of connection. It's very likely that the affinity between you and the demonic iris sword is being manipulated by the demonic iris sword from behind the scenes. It's very likely that he's trying to use the demonic iris sword and you to carry out some sort of scheme. It's best that you keep your guard up around the demonic iris sword, or else you'll be in big trouble. What gives you the right to say that about my sword maiden? Song Yifei's eyes widened in anger. Didn't our teachers teach us that sword maidens are humans' best friends? Shouldn't we have absolute trust and respect for them? Didn't we humans and sword maidens help each other to get to where we are today? Why are you telling me to keep my guard up around my sword maiden? What are you thinking? I can trust other sword maidens, but your demonic iris sword is different. The relationship between it and the demonic iris sword is written clearly in primary school textbooks. Song Yifei, I know what I said is a little harsh, but I'm telling the truth, said Gahan. Humph, it's none of your business. Who do you think you are? Song Yifei spat. This isn't just about you. If the Nether Iris Sword is really a foreshadowing left behind by the Nether Iris Sword Emperor in the human world, you won't be the only one affected once the Nether Iris Sword is activated. Song Yifei, this might affect the safety of the entire human world, said Gu Lung coldly. You're exaggerating. Song Yifei mumbled. Gahan knew that he had failed to persuade her. Fine, he would just let her be. If it was really Jindy's plan, it wasn't something he could resolve with just a few words. He could only hope that it was just his delusion. After the unpleasant conversation, Guhan and Song Yifei walked in silence for a while. Gahan walked in front without saying a word, while Song Yifei regretted her actions. She knew that what Gahan said was reasonable. Even her master, Zhu Wudao, had clearly warned her to be careful of the demonic iris sword. All she needed to do was say something along the lines of Gahan and mutter a few words. There was no need for her to start a fight with Gahan for no reason. How did you know that the demonic iris sword didn't sense my sword affinity on its own? I was the one who touched it on my own accord. Song Yifei thought to herself. Since your sword, Maiden, hasn't been synchronized for over 300 years, I'll do the same. I don't want the gap between us to widen. Not to mention what these two people were thinking. Guhan and Song Yifei walked all the way. When they came to a fork in the road, they found that Song Yifei was still following them. Guhan couldn't help but feel strange, so she turned around and asked, Why are you still following me? Aren't you going home? Who's following you? Song Yifei blushed. My house is in this direction too. I know you live in Sanqing Mountain District. My house is there too. I just moved in. Oh. Gahan nodded. Indeed, the new sword bearers were arranged to live in Sanqing Mountain District. It was possible that Song Yifei was heading in the same direction as him. You can go back first. I still have something to do. Gahan waved his hand and walked in another direction. Hey, are you going to look for your sword maiden? Song Yifei asked as she chased after Gahan. How did you know? Guhan was startled. He had indeed lost the sword lady who was looking for him. Qing Popper and Gu Yun had been taken by Yi Tian to who knows where to play. In less than 3 hours, they were going to gather and set off. Guhan had to bring these 3 unlucky kids back. Fortunately, with the sword mark, Guhan could estimate where Qing Pin and Yi Tian were. He didn't have to worry about not being able to find them. My sword maiden is with your sword maiden, Song Yifei said with a red face. I met Lady Yi Tian on the way here. Ming Yuan seemed to know Lady Yi Tian, so they went to play together. What was this? Was it fate? The 2 sword bearers were together. They suddenly realized that their sword maidens were together in advance. As a result, Guhan and Song Yifei set off to look for their sword maidens. Following the sword mark's reaction, Guhan and Song Yifei arrived at the central business district of the core area. There were many people here, and it was almost crowded. Because every inch of land in the core area was worth its weight in gold, the central business district was only a few square kilometers in size. Naturally, it was very crowded. This wasn't the era before the Great Calamity, where commerce was king. The more expensive a territory was, the more central business districts there were. This was an era where people lived. Everyone wanted to build residential buildings in the core area. Being able to squeeze out a small part of the central business district was already a very extravagant thing. If they weren't careful, Guhan and Song Yifei were squeezed together by the crowd. Their bodies were pressed closely together. Guhan could clearly feel two soft steam buns on his chest. Song Yifei's breath blew on Guhan's neck, giving Guhan goosebumps. Because these were all ordinary people. Even if Guhan and Song Yifei were both sword bearers, they couldn't use brute force to do anything to these ordinary people. If this got out, it would be big news. The ordinary people in the core area weren't ordinary people either. They all had sword bearers behind them. If they didn't handle it well, they might offend a lot of people. Most importantly, the Commission for Discipline Inspection had a strict rule that in the core area, unless they met Yuan Ko, and unless their lives were in danger, sword bearers were not allowed to use their power. Once they used it, they would be sued by the Commission for Discipline Inspection. Therefore, the two of them were squeezed to the side of the road by the surging crowd for a while before separating. Song Yifei's face was flushed. She didn't care that her two steam buns were pressed against Guhan's chest. What she cared about was that her lower body was being pressed against by something hot. It was an amazingly hard stick that was emitting heat. It was directly pressed against the area between Song Yifei's legs. Song Yifei wasn't an idiot who didn't know anything. Of course, she knew what that stick was. Therefore, Song Yifei felt her entire body was wet. "Oomph, I thought you were something special. In the end, you still fell for my beauty." Song Yifei thought proudly. It was obvious that she had been taken advantage of by Guhan, but she wasn't angry at all. Instead, she had a smug look on her face. This matter really needed to be praised. Guhan's expression didn't look right either. He didn't think that the problem with the Green Lotus 3 swords would be this serious. It was just a physical contact, and he made a fool out of himself. Song Yifei was probably furious. Of course, Guhan didn't know that Song Yifei wasn't angry at all right now. Instead, she had a smug look on her face. Chapter 342. In this world, there was a kind of love called meeting love at a corner. Of course, there was also a kind of love called Qingpin meeting Qingpin at a corner. Guhan and Song Yifei awkwardly turned a corner and saw a scene that made Guhan burn with jealousy. A bald donkey was hugging Qingpin and kissing Qingpin's little face. What was worse was that this guy was kissing and chanting Ba. Every time he kissed, he would say Ba. Guhan was about to explode. Guhan had never kissed Qingpin so many times in his life. What the F***CK, Song Yifei, who was watching from the side, was very happy. After all, this bald donkey was her sword lady. Song Yifei laughed as she watched. "Guhan, it seems that our Hanya really likes your Qingpin. I've never seen Hanya like this. She's been staying in the temple these few days. I thought she was really a bodhisattva. Your Hanya should go kiss your Mingyuan. Who asked her to kiss my Qingpin?" Guhan was speechless. He walked forward and was about to carry Qingpin back. "Stupid nun, the first thing you do when you get back is to give Qingpin a good bath," Guhan thought to himself. The jealous Guhan casually reached out a hand and was about to take Qingpin back. However, Hanya's reaction was very quick. She moved to the side and dodged Guhan's outstretched hand, giving Guhan a big miss. "You have some ability." Guhan's eyebrows twitched. Just now he had attacked out of jealousy. Although he did not use his full strength, he had used 50% of his strength. 50% of his strength was enough to deal with an ordinary sword maiden. But this Bo-Ri had easily dodged it. Not to mention anything else, this movement technique was at the peak even among sword maidens. "Give me back Qingpin." Gohan let out a cold snort and attacked 3 more times. Each time, he attacked Hanya's most crucial spot. Let alone dodging, normal people wouldn't even be able to see it clearly. However, Hanya dodged them one by one, causing Gohan's attacks to miss. However, Hanya couldn't dodge as easily as she did at the beginning. She slightly gasped for breath. It seemed like she had spent a lot of energy just now. Are the two of you fighting? Song Yifei looked at Gohan and Bo Ri in confusion. He couldn't understand why this man and woman were fighting. Did they have a grudge against each other? From Song Yifei's point of view, Hanya hugging and kissing Qingpin was just an expression of her fondness for Qingpin. It wasn't a big deal. It was like a friend coming home and seeing that your naughty child was cute, so they kissed him a few times. It couldn't be more normal. Song Yifei didn't expect that Gohan would suddenly become jealous and start fighting with Hanya. Qingpin, come back. Hearing Song Yifei's words, Gohan calmed down. At this time, his fight with Hanya had already attracted a lot of onlookers. If they continued fighting, they would be treated like monkeys. Thus, Gohan simply used his will to make Qingpin return to his sword form. It turned into a stream of light and returned to his hand. Then, he released Qingpin back to his cute form and held him in his arms. Gohan, why are you here? Because Gohan was going to meet Liu Lei, he didn't bring Qingpin's nursery bag. Qingpin could only lean in Gohan's arms and say with a pout, I'm here to look for you, Guiyun and Etion. We have a mission. We're about to leave the city to carry out the mission. Carry out the mission? Just like the time at Plum Ridge? Hearing that they were going to carry out the mission, Qingpin immediately thought of something good. Then his saliva flowed down the corner of his mouth. Hey, Gohan, can we still eat that frog meat? No. This trip to Chanyang Mountain was Yuan Ko's territory. It wouldn't be like Plum Ridge, where there was someone running a restaurant. It was already a great blessing to not starve Qingpin. Hearing that they wouldn't be able to eat delicious frog meat this time, Qingpin immediately lost interest and became listless. However, she immediately thought of something and twisted a few times in Gohan's arms. Gohan, hurry up and let me go. I still haven't been kissed yet. Let me go first. When Gohan heard that Qingpin actually took the initiative to give Hanya a kiss, he was infuriated. He snorted and asked, What's going on? Why do you want Hanya to kiss you? Qingpin want a doll. Qingpin pouted and said, Hanya said that as long as Qingpin kisses her 100 times, she will give Qingpin 100 coins so that Qingpin can play with dolls. 100 coins? Play with dolls? Hearing this, Gohan immediately raised his head and looked around. Sure enough, on Gohan's left, there was a shop with the words Heroes of Heaven and Earth Animation and Entertainment City, which was filled with all kinds of electronic entertainment equipment. Although virtual reality games were already perfect in the modern era, it seemed that the traditional dolls from before the apocalypse could be replaced. However, in reality, the satisfaction in reality was something that the game could never satisfy the players. Therefore, such an electronic entertainment city was still very popular after 1,000 years. Hearing that 100 coins and dolls could be played with, Gohan could roughly guess what had happened. Looking at the signboard of the electronic entertainment city, everything was clear. It seemed like Qingpin had taken a fancy to one of the dolls in the claw machine, but she didn't have any coins. Therefore, she could only use her cute face to exchange for the game coins in Hanya's hand. Qingpin, if you want to buy something in the future, just tell me. Don't bother others. Gohan hugged Qingpin in his arms. Let's go. I'll get you the doll you want. Saying this, Gohan carried Qingpin and strode into the Heaven and Earth Heroes Animation and Entertainment City. Hey, don't we have to gather in 2 hours? Seeing Gohan run in, Song Yifei had no choice but to follow Gohan into the city. Amitabha, Buddha once said that all laws punish the heavens. Emptiness is a lullicon. Lust is a lullicon. Let go of the lullicon and become a Buddha. Amitabha. This sword maiden Hanya shouted a Buddhist chant that only she could understand and also entered the entertainment city. As soon as they entered the Heaven and Earth Heroes Animation and Entertainment City, Gohan saw Etion. She was riding a hover bike and speeding on the virtual road. However, Etion's gaming device seemed to be for two people. Beside Etion, there was a girl in black who was also racing. It seemed like the two of them were competing. Forget it, Gahan decided to help Qingpin get her doll first. Hearing that Gahan was going to help her with the doll, Qingpin was very excited. She waved her little hands and guided Gahan to a claw machine. Gahan, look, doesn't this doll look like you? The dolls in this claw machine were all cute, anthropomorphic dolls. Gahan took a look at the claw machine's description. It turned out that the dolls in this claw machine were all cute genie dolls made in the past genie's appearance. Yes, it must be said that these dolls were all genuine dolls that had been authorized by the Sword Committee. They were definitely not those shoddily made pirated dolls. Buying dolls and holding dolls meant that one had to hold the genuine dolls. Ahem, back to the main topic. Seeing these dolls, Qingpin suddenly became excited. She pointed at a blue doll wearing casual clothes and shouted happily, Gahan, Qingpin wants that doll. Qingpin wants that doll. Is this doll really that good looking? Is there a need to care so much about it? Gahan thought sourly. However, when he took a closer look at the doll, he felt that it was a little familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. Gahan, look, doesn't this doll look like you? Qingpin pinched Gahan's face, as if she wanted to use her hand to confirm Gahan's appearance. Hearing Qingpin's words, Gahan immediately understood why this doll looked so familiar. This doll indeed looked like him. Gahan, Qingpin will hug this doll to sleep in the future. That way, Qingpin will have two Gahan to sleep with. Qingpin's cute and soft words completely melted Gahan's heart. It turned out that Qingpin wanted this doll because she wanted another Gahan to sleep with her. Well, just because of this sentence, Gahan had to take this doll out. Gahan carefully observed this claw machine. Most of the doll that looked like Gahan was buried by the other dolls, and only its head was exposed. In other words, if Gahan wanted to grab this doll, he could only grab the doll's head. Gahan looked at the claw machine's claws. Although the claws weren't big, it was enough to clamp the doll's head. Therefore, Gahan nodded confidently. With Gahan's eyesight and subtle control of strength, it was a piece of cake for him to grab this doll. Go, exchange some coins for me. At this time, Song Yifei had just caught up. Gahan threw 100 renminbi into Song Yifei's personal terminal without looking back and left this sentence. Therefore, Song Yifei eagerly went to the automatic coin machine and exchanged 100 coins for Gahan. As a result, when she handed the coins to Gahan, she suddenly realized what the hell was going on. When did she become Gahan's henchman? Although Song Yifei was cursing in her heart at this time, Gahan had already started to clamp the doll. Song Yifei, who also had no resistance to clamping dolls, immediately put aside her displeasure and began to focus on watching Gahan clamp the doll. Gahan put his hand on the claw machine's joystick and tapped it casually. The claw of the claw machine accurately stopped above the doll that looked like Gahan. Then, Gahan decisively pressed the button. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.